Bulgaria, Romania and Slovenia, according to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He spoke to reporters aboard the president's plane.
Leaders will ratify some of the decisions taken by defense ministers last week, but they'll also task the military and political instruments of NATO to set out a longer-term game plan for what forces and capabilities are going to be required in those eastern flank countries.
There was sad news conveyed to President Biden as he flew. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84. She'd been battling cancer. Born in Czechoslovakia, her family moved to the United States when she was just 11, after fleeing first the Nazis and then the Communists. President Bill Clinton appointed her to be America's ambassador to the UN and then promoted her to the State Department. She was a proponent of NATO expansion and urged the White House to take a stronger position on the conflict in Bosnia. Paying tribute at the UN today, the current US ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Her story, a story of fleeing Czechoslovakia as a refugee at a young age and rising in the highest levels of the US government, has echoed in my mind amid the current crisis in Ukraine. And I hope to do justice for her memory today.
And former President Bill Clinton said today that Madeleine Albright was a tireless champion for democracy and human rights. In other news today, the British government pledged to cut income tax before the country's next election. Chancellor Rishi Sunak presented his annual spring statement, cut fuel duty, but conceded inflation will surge to 7.6% this year. And on Capitol Hill, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has been facing another day of questioning in her quest to win a seat on the US Supreme Court. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the Ukrainians who are ending up in Russia as a result of Vladimir Putin's war. The authorities in the besieged city of Mariupol claim that the Russians are forcing some evacuating civilians to travel to Russia and then giving them no opportunity to transit to a third country. Indeed, the Russians earlier in the conflict insisted they would only honour some humanitarian corridors provided Ukrainians agreed to move themselves and their families to Russia. Andriy Zagorodnyuk is Ukraine's former defense minister, now an advisor to the country's vice prime minister, and he says the Russians are in essence kidnapping residents of Mariupol.
The city is very close to Russia geographically. Lots of people have families and so on. So in order to show that Russians still have some human face left, they're organizing a forced evacuations. So basically they're grabbing people on the streets, getting them in the homes and saying, okay, we're going to bring you to Russia. You're going to live in Russia. They take their passports and so on, but they're portraying it on TV as if they're helping people to evacuate. But in reality, that's a forced evacuation, and very few people who want to go to Russia.
Last weekend, the Biden administration indicated it is concerned about the possibility of prison camps being created for Ukrainians on the other side of the Russian border. Certainly, their fate could loom large in any talks designed to bring the conflict to an end. The main news again, the United States is formally accusing Russia of war crimes in Ukraine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken citing indiscriminate attacks deliberately targeting civilians. Madeleine Albright, the first woman to become US Secretary of State, has died aged 84. And the stage is set for Thursday's emergency NATO summit in Brussels. Leaders are expected to send additional troops to the alliance's eastern flank. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. This week, mothers across the nation invented a new drug to worry about, confirming that the completely fictitious new substance was appearing in schoolyards across the nation and is easily created from simple household products like sugar, window cleaner, and petroleum jelly. Calling the totally made-up narcotic scramp, mothers in desperate need of something to fret over deluded themselves into constantly agonizing over the widespread drug epidemic that exists solely in their minds.
My son sits in his room for hours and hours. It must be scramp. He's a scramp head. I bet they'll figure out how to scramp with this too.
In other news, a man confidently strides through a beaded curtain without parting it. A father takes a picture of his daughter every day from birth until he abandons his family. And the same homeless man is always begging for change on the same United flight. Stalled contract negotiations have prevented me from reviewing any more news until I receive a co-producer credit. But for more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. You can dial in at 603-283-6160. And in the studio here tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and Bonnie.
Bring up whatever's on your mind. That's what we do here on Free Talk Live. It's open phones every single night. 603-283-6160. There's a story that I've been teasing now for 2 days, and we still haven't gotten to. So we're going to start the show with that tonight. And then later on, Aria, you're going to tell us about the Perma Crisis.
Well, that's what some people, some lunatics out there are calling it.
It's a new term. I have not heard this before.
I mean, if it's a perma crisis, it's not a crisis, right? I mean, is it?
Because if there's nothing you can do about it, you just have to live with it.
Yeah, crisis is like, by definition, a temporary thing, right?
Yeah, it's something out of the ordinary, right? It's something that has to be dealt with. But the idea of a perma crisis totally fits like the statist mantra the statist belief, because they always need to have a crisis to justify total statism and a total police state and lockdowns and crackdowns. And so the more crises, the better as far as the state is concerned. So that's coming up here tonight. Plus something that you've got, Bonnie, about people angry at elites and why it's apparently misplaced anger. We can talk about that on the way here. But we're going to start out with this opinion piece from Bloomberg's Teresa Ghilarducci. Headline: Inflation stings most if you earn less than $300,000. Here's how to deal.
It's so much money, too. It's like, I mean, I feel like that's way above the average person, right?
It's significantly above the average person's rate of pay.
Yeah, I think they generally consider $75,000 a year. This may be an old number, but you know, this is definitely prior to the insane levels of inflation in the last couple of years. But I think $75,000 used to be considered wealthy. I know that's the cutoff for the stimulus checks, right? Like if you make more than $75,000 a year, you don't get the more recent stimulus checks.
Well, the median household income for 2020 was $67,000.
And that's for a household.
That's for the household.
So you got to figure
two
it's probably
earners. Close to like 34,000.
Yeah. And then, of course, the median means that half of the people make more and half of the people make less than that amount.
I remember thinking my friend's parents were really wealthy for like each making $100,000, like really wealthy. Like, well, they're going to be comfortable till they die. So $300,000 is just so much money.
That's a lot of money for most people. But anyway, let's not focus on that. She's got some suggestions as to how to deal with inflation.
Oh, these are bound to be good.
Oh, yeah. So here she goes.
Just buy a bunch of gold.
If your income is more than $289,000 a year, the run-up in gas prices may be alarming, but it's unlikely to hammer your overall finances. After all, Americans at that level spend no more than 1% of their take-home pay on gas and oil, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. For those earning much less, it's a different story. Those at the median with income of about $50,000 spend more than 3% of it on gas and motor oil. Low-income households making between $7,000 and $19,000 spend about 9% of their income on gas and motor oil. The latest inflation numbers show gas prices jumped 6.6% in February from just 1 month earlier, even before Joe Biden banned U.S. imports of Russian oil. Economists say the overall share of income spent on gas is lower than it used to be. Despite the increases, prices are still relatively low by historical standards. That's true, but it offers little consolation these days for someone on the lower end of the income distribution who drives to work. And she's right about all that. It's definitely true that the less money you make, the larger percentage of your resources are going to just keeping the gas in your tank and the lights on in your home and keeping mouths fed, right?
That's not necessarily a problem, though.
Well, it is a problem.
It's just a truism.
Yeah, well, it's a problem for those people because they have to deal with it. They have to overcome that.
Well, so do the people who make, $300,000 a year.
Sure, but it doesn't affect them in the same way. If prices
but it's still something that have to be dealt with.
Well, but if prices at the grocery store for somebody making $300,000 double, they can still buy a steak.
True.
But somebody else might be eating ramen or something like that, or canned beans.
People don't eat ramen. It's basically just styrofoam. I mean, your body treats it the way that it would treat styrofoam, more or less. You get no nutrients from it.
Food prices are also up posting their biggest monthly increase since April of 2020. And there, too, those making less than $19,000 spend much more of their income, about 15%, compared with higher earners.
Okay, see, that's not fair. People making less than $19,000 a year also receive a bunch of government benefits like food stamps and housing assistance and assistance with their electricity bill and stuff like that, and their cell phones that the average person does not get.
Well, maybe they do. I mean, not everybody takes welfare.
I don't think you can survive on $19,000 a year in the United States without taking the government welfare that comes with it.
Yeah, it would be very difficult.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I know some
What if
people
you're living at home with, hold on, what if you're living at home with your parents?
Okay.
You could, but why do it at that point? You can still get the welfare money. Well, I know some people that live in government housing, but if they work any more hours, then they'll lose it.
They'll cut them.
So it's like disincentivizing them to make more money.
Yeah. So that's, again, almost 15% of their income gets spent on food, whereas higher earners, total food spending is just 4% of their income. Households with income...
See, I just don't think that's accurate. For these people, 0% of their income is getting spent on food because they're using, food stamps and SNAP benefits and stuff like that to buy it.
I guess you'd have to find out what percentage of people that make that amount of money are actually on welfare. I don't know.
That's true.
I would not jump to the conclusion
off the top of my head.
It's all of them. I mean,
I would say that it's the vast majority of them.
Households with income of about $50,000 spend 8.5% of it on food. The most recent barometer of consumer sentiment show the highest ever share of Americans expecting their finances to worsen in the coming year. About 54% of Americans believe their incomes will lag behind inflation in the year ahead, which is a pretty high percentage historically. And the other 46% are just not aware of what's going to happen to them. Those 54% are absolutely right. Their incomes are going to lag behind inflation because almost no job is going to give you monthly or quarterly pay raises to deal with the ever-increasing inflation out there.
Yeah, inflation increased by like 10%, just going off the government's numbers from last month to this month or something along those lines.
No, that's 10%, I believe, from a year prior.
Okay.
I believe is how they measure that.
But almost no one made 10%. Got a 10% raise. Raises are usually something more like 3% or something along those lines. And that's if you did a really good job.
Exactly.
Like a lot of these places, your typical baseline wage increase is like 2% each year.
So going on, she says, I expect those most affected will adjust to inflation in the classic way by shifting away from relatively expensive items towards close substitutes. Here are some ideas on how to reconfigure consumption and lessen the blow. But again, adjustment is hard for people without savings or choices. First, you have to know your budget to control your budget. Budgeting takes effort, but it gives you power, and that power is even more important in inflationary times. Good advice so far, right? It's good to be aware of what you're spending money on, because if you don't pay attention to those sorts of things, then it's hard to really give it an accurate assessment of what your habits are. So
teaching the average American how to budget would be a much more useful life skill than diagramming sentences or whatever it is they teach in high school these days.
I've never known how to budget. Like when I did Uber
because
Eats,
they don't teach it.
I got paid weekly, so it was just like I don't know. I felt like it was too difficult to. I don't know.
It does take some effort. I mean, I can't say that I've always been good with saving. So even when I was really young, I had no problem spending less than I was earning.
Sure.
Right. So like if you can do that, you're generally
that's the point of budgeting, right?
Yeah.
Some people have to actually sit down and do the numbers to figure it out, but some people are just innately good at it.
But it just if you're good with that, then great. If not, what you need to do, in my opinion, is to pay attention to what you spend. Because it's easy to figure out what you earn, right? Like if you're at a job, you just collect your pay stubs, and you can see over the last month you brought in this amount of money. If you have other ways that you earn, like if you're selling something on eBay or turning tricks or whatever it is that you're doing, you'd have to calculate that separately. But if you just have a job, you can just total that up. And then every day you can pay attention. Whenever you spend money, you write it down. And then at the end of the week, you calculate up, all right, what did you spend on coffee? What did you spend at the grocery store? What did you spend on gasoline in these different categories? And then do it the next week, and then do it at the end of the month. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever is on your mind here. The number 603-283-6160. On a lot of people's mind is living with inflation. Prices are going up. And remember, increasing prices is a symptom of inflation. A lot of the news media and the professors in college will tell you that the increase in prices is inflation. No. Inflation is an increase in the money supply. And that's something that the government does.
Well, calling inflation an increase in prices allows them to shift the blame, right?
That's right.
To the corporations. They just raised the prices because
they're just being
greedy.
Or it's a supply issue.
Or it's Putin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in reality, no. Inflation is an increase in the money supply, and prices increase as a result of that.
Yep. And so, regardless of the reasons for it, people have to live with the reality of this. And it's, of course, worse now than it has ever been in my lifetime. Purportedly, the rates, if you go by the official rates, which you shouldn't because the official rates are highly manipulated, but you can at the very least say that the inflation rate is definitely no lower than what the official rate is. It's likely much higher than the official rate, but that is a floor for what at the very minimum inflation is. And those rates are at their highest in 40 years, and the producer price index is at its highest in the measured history of the producer price index. So likely consumer price index is going to probably set a new record within the next couple of months if things keep going the way they are, and there's no reason to expect that they're not going to keep going the way they are.
No, the government's not going to slow down the printing presses, right? They have, they say something to the effect of every problem looks like a nail when the only tool you have is a hammer. Printing money is the only tool the government has.
Well, besides blowing people up and, murdering them, putting them in cages.
Okay, that's true. Well, that's the only weapon they have. Yeah,
for an economic tool, that's the only one they have, and it's a terrible one. We'll talk about their plan to give a stipend out. They may be giving out gas stipends now as the new stimulus checks.
This is going to make the problem worse.
Yes, it will.
You're just going to stop getting tax refunds.
What's that?
You're just going to stop getting tax income refunds. Is that what you call it?
I guess.
Income tax refunds? Is that what you call them? The things people get in February every year?
Well, a lot of people call them refunds, but more often than not, it's just free money for the average person. I mean, because most people get back significantly more than they pay in.
You're saying they're going to stop doing that?
Well, because with the stimulus checks, all they do is they're just fronting you for an income tax thing.
I think there was a mistake made somewhere. I don't think that's going to be the case for the vast majority of people.
You've just brought up something, Bonnie, that you told me about earlier today, and I wanted to verify before we talked about it on the air. But since you brought it up, you should go ahead and tell the story.
Well,
let's clarify. This is basically
rumor,
unverified. I wouldn't call it a rumor. You know the person who's making the claim, so it's not hearsay. She's not telling you about someone else's experience. She's telling you about your experience, but
her experience.
Yeah, her experience.
So this has been the rumor since stimulus checks came out. Was people would say, "Oh, they're just going to make you pay it back during tax season. It's not actually free money." Everybody thought it was free money, but no, it's not going to be free money. And this lady I know said that when she went to do her taxes, I don't know if she used something where she could see the amount that she was expecting to get back, like TurboTax does that. So, but I don't know if she used that or like a third-party service. I don't know. But she was expecting some amount of money back from filing her taxes. And then she got a letter in the mail saying, no, we're rejecting that. That's your analysis of your monetary situation was incorrect. Because you received the 2020 and 2021 stimulus checks, we owe you nothing and you owe us nothing, which is such a weird way to put it. I just think that's something about that is so weird.
Does the person in question have children?
No.
Okay, because I know that is an issue. The whole the monthly paychecks that people were getting from the government, that is just being fronted out of their tax refund.
Correct. Yep. We had heard about that. I think it was Angie who was our co-host at the time. She said
kids on there that she was getting
right. And so we looked into that, and that was true about that. We know that's a fact. The $300 a month is a front on the child earned income tax credit or whatever the hell they call it that parents get usually at tax time. So they were just essentially taking the full amount of whatever that was, and they are spread $3,600 or something, and they're stretching it out over the full year, delivering it in $300 increments. So given that they're willing to do that to the parents, it wouldn't surprise me if what Bonnie is saying here is a true story, and there's no reason to disbelieve this lady.
My experience has been different, though.
Okay,
right. I do use TurboTax, which gives you a live update of what you're going to get back, and mine didn't change. It didn't go down when I was like, yes, I did receive the stimulus check for the whichever one it was.
But when did
But if you
file
haven't
it?
received the money
Like
yet,
2 or 3 days ago.
then it still might happen to you. Like you might receive a letter in the mail that says, this is being rejected because you received the stimulus checks. We owe you nothing and you owe us nothing. But then it would be the same as what happened to her.
It could,
but I
but
don't know if
I
she's-
tend to think the person in question, if they were, especially if they were doing their own taxes, they probably just made a mistake.
Oh, I don't know if they did their own taxes or used TurboTax or
Well,
used a
TurboTax
third
is
party.
doing your own taxes.
Or did a third party thing. I don't know. I was just like stipulating because she knew the amount that she thought she'd get.
Right. So if they told her that she was going to get a refund,
And this isn't a lady that makes a whole bunch of money and should owe by any means.
and then the IRS sends her a letter later on saying, "No, you don't get the refund you were expecting. Have a nice day." Then that suggests that if she was using one of these programs that maybe they didn't know, right? Like maybe the TurboTax people didn't realize that the government was going to screw people, like this. And it could be a surprise. Now, another question is, when did she file? Do you have any idea?
No.
Okay.
And another person I know, he didn't say, I used TurboTax, but it sounded like it because I used to use TurboTax, and this is what it sounded like it used to do. He said as he was putting it in, they asked him the question, did you receive these stimulus checks? And when he put yes, it just dropped the amount he was getting down by like hundreds of dollars.
But you're saying that didn't happen to you?
No.
I don't know.
And, I work with a lot of people who, they just get a W-2, they file their taxes, they quote, get back some money each year. And I haven't heard anything from anyone outside of libertarian circles about not receiving their refund because of stimulus. And
I couldn't find anything.
I was one of the last ones to file my taxes in the circle of non-libertarians.
I looked online when Bonnie told me about this because I thought, well, if she's received this letter, then presumably someone else has received the same letter, so there must be an article or
maybe
some
they're
sort
doing
of
it to
scan.
people they think won't fight back.
Well, there's no way you can fight it, right?
Well,
Like, how could you fight
IRS,
it?
man.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're going to hire an attorney,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
which is
People
going to cost
can't
you
afford that.
thousands of dollars. It's just people are just going to say, "Damned IRS," and they're going to have to move on with their lives, and the IRS knows that.
That's screwed up.
So
I wouldn't put it past the government. It just hasn't been my experience so far.
It's not a surprise to me to hear this, but that's why I said I just wanted to verify it before we talked about it. But maybe somebody else out there has had this happen to them, and you can call and share with your experience with us. The number is 603-283-6160. Then we'll get back into the story here about some of this, what I'm calling statist advice as to how to deal with inflation. We haven't really even gotten into the meat of this. She brought up making a budget, which is a good idea, but she's got some specific suggestions coming up here in moments from Bloomberg, and you can share your thoughts with us here. This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on Library for years. Library is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, Library launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United States is formally accusing Russia of war crimes in Ukraine. The decision came in a statement from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who accused Russia of indiscriminate attacks that are deliberately targeting civilians. He said the U.S. will continue to gather information to assist any legal process that arises. Beth Van Skak is the U.S. Ambassador at Large for Global Criminal Justice.
I think it's incredibly important to shed a light on what's happening within Ukraine so that the people of Ukraine understand that the world knows what they are suffering at the hands of an aggressive war that was launched unprovoked by Russia. It's also extremely important to continue to document what's happening on the ground. We don't want to lose that evidence, so it's extremely important that it be collected now and preserved.
As she was speaking there at the State Department podium, President Biden was on Air Force One, heading to Brussels for Thursday's emergency NATO and EU summits on Ukraine. Alliance leaders will move forward with fresh troop deployments in Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania and Slovenia, according to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He spoke to reporters aboard the president's plane.
Leaders will ratify some of the decisions taken by defense ministers last week, but they'll also task the military and political instruments of NATO to set out a longer-term game plan for what forces and capabilities are going to be required in those eastern flank countries.
There was sad news conveyed to President Biden as he flew. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84. She'd been battling cancer. Born in Czechoslovakia, her family moved to the United States when she was just 11, after fleeing first the Nazis and then the Communists. President Bill Clinton appointed her to be America's ambassador to the UN and then promoted her to the State Department. She was a proponent of NATO expansion and urged the White House to take a stronger position on the conflict in Bosnia. Paying tribute at the UN today, the current U.S. ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Her story, a story of fleeing Czechoslovakia as a refugee at a young age and rising in the highest levels of the U.S. government, has echoed in my mind amid the current crisis in Ukraine. And I hope to do justice for her memory today.
And former President Bill Clinton said today that Madeleine Albright was a tireless champion for democracy and human rights. In other news today, the British government pledged to cut income tax before the country's next election. Chancellor Rishi Sunak presented his annual spring statement, cut fuel duty, but conceded inflation will surge to 7.6% this year. And on Capitol Hill, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has been facing another day of questioning in her quest to win a seat on the U.S. Supreme Court. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones open. If you want to join the show, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. Talking about inflation, talking about the economy, and we're going to get into some suggestions here from Bloomberg, written by some professor, so you know it's going to be statist.
And out of touch with the average person.
Absolutely. So we'll get into that coming up here. With you tonight, by the way, it is Ian.
Aria.
And Bonnie.
Don't forget, if you're interested in learning about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, cryptocurrency, get on over to Bitcoin.com and you can get started. Just click Get Started at the top of the page. It'll give you some introductory videos that you can spend a little bit of time watching. The first one, I think, is all of about 3 minutes long. And you get down some of the most important basics about cryptocurrency. And it is important to learn some of these things to get some of the new concepts down when it comes to decentralization and blockchain technology. It's not a huge learning curve, but there is a little bit of one. You can go to Bitcoin.com and start that process by clicking Get Started at the top of the page. Now, if you're not new to cryptocurrency and you want to get the latest headlines, they've got those for you over at news.bitcoin.com. That's news.bitcoin.com. We go to your phone calls and thoughts. First up, Joe is in Michigan. Joe, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, the actual inflation rate's probably closer to 16% than what they're saying.
Sounds believable.
Yeah, that's at least what my tax guy said.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
He said I guess they changed how they calculate it. You know, I don't know, a few years ago how they calculate inflation.
Yeah, they're always manipulating it, like excluding certain categories.
Like, we don't need to calculate the amount of inflation for food products.
I think food's in there, but real estate, I think, is not.
Isn't like certain type of food not in there?
I always forget all the details.
It's like milk isn't in there.
I think energy is not included.
I saw I can't remember the channel on YouTube, a documentary channel. He was, a few weeks ago I watched it. He was out in San Francisco or someplace, and there were cars parked up, just lined up. And the guy asked, well, what's this? You know, what's going on here? these were the working homeless. These are people who they got full-time jobs, but they can't afford rent, so they're living out of their car. And I think we're heading to a depression. And I don't believe anything these politicians say about anything. I think we're going to see more and more people. You're going to have to be doubling up, moving back with your mom and dad.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all this stuff because, I mean, look at any city, man. It's not just the big cities anymore. Even in the Midwest or Rust Belt or any place, man, you look at just apartments and stuff and housing and everything.
We were just talking about this last night, Joe. There was a report on 60 Minutes recently where they interviewed some people in the real estate and housing world, renters and landlords, and they said that in some cities like Austin, Jacksonville, and others, rents have gone up on an average of 30 to 40% from last year.
Yeah, and they're projecting the bottom's getting ready to fall out of the real estate market. They said it's going to values are going to drop like 25%.
Well, that would be wonderful for people that are actually trying to buy a house for the first time, because there are people who are completely priced out of the marketplace.
Yeah, prices would still be way up if they went down 25%.
Well, if you're a young person, man, if you can afford to buy, I guess you should. It's still better than renting because you got, it's equity and all that stuff.
I don't know. I just met somebody the other day that bought a house in 2007, and it took him like a decade to finally sell it, and he still just took a loss off of it, just moved to New Hampshire. And that was what kept him from moving to New Hampshire the whole time, because he bought a house in 2007, and obviously 2008 was the market crash. So it sounds like a bad idea to buy a house.
I took a big bath on the house that I'd purchased down in Florida before I moved here. I'd bought it in 2004 and then ended up losing. I put in a lot of money into repairing and upgrading it. I ended up losing a lot of money on that, selling it.
That's unfortunate.
Because the market started to crash. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. We got a bunch of morons running our country, and they want to run the world with the Great Reset and all this stuff. And these people can, it's like common sense has left. It's gone. Let's micromanage everything. Let's just keep printing money like it's monopoly money.
You can count on that. They're definitely going to keep printing that money.
It isn't even like monopoly money anymore. Have you looked at it? It is monopoly money.
They changed the colors to monopoly money.
Our 5s are pink.
Yeah.
Our 100s are, I don't remember the colors.
Yeah, they're definitely blue.
The 10s are yellow.
Yeah, they're really throwing it in your face.
Yeah, they are. They are blatantly doing it.
Joe, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
Have a good one. I was going to say, if they do that digital currency they're talking about, they'll be able to control everything, man.
Yes.
That's ball game right there.
That's what they want to do. They haven't announced it officially yet, but they keep on researching it, and they're putting money into investigating it, and it's just like, it's only a matter of time, I think, before they announce that that's going to be a move that they're going to make.
All right.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate hearing from you.
I don't know that the U.S. government will live long enough to do that.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Let's go to Brian in Missouri. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Ian and Aria and Bonnie.
Hey, what's on your mind, Brian?
It's great being on here.
Thanks.
Been listening since the summer of 2011.
Wow. All right. What's on your mind tonight?
There was a couple of points I was wanting to make, like what Aria was saying about the food stamps, that if people get food stamps, then they're automatically going to have enough money to get food for the month. That's not really the case, especially if we don't have kids like me. I've been lucky at times to get food stamps, but I've only got like $100 to $200. And heck, at the recent stop at a grocery store, just getting a few things, it was like $150, and that barely got us through 1 week.
Yeah, I do feel you on that one. I don't go grocery shopping often, but when I do, it's usually like $150 to $200 worth of food, and it's just not a whole lot.
It's not what it used to be.
I don't know what it used to be.
You used to be able to fill up a whole grocery cart for $200.
Yeah, you're not doing that now.
No.
Definitely. I really think that the only couple things that could have really fixed this is, one, having foresight, that 2020, it's always like in your past vision, if we could hop in a time machine and all get on Bitcoin when it was like pennies on the dollar.
We were telling people back then to get into Bitcoin.
Don't we all wish that we did that?
I think Bitcoin could still fix this.
I'm sorry?
I think Bitcoin could still fix this because you can still buy crypto you can still buy it for way cheaper than each Bitcoin is worth. You can buy pieces of a Bitcoin. And I still think Bitcoin can fix this.
I don't think it's going to fix anything, but Bitcoin can be a way out for people to take value that they've earned in fiat money and put it into something else.
Yeah, fix their value getting stolen from them.
But it ain't going to fix inflation. That's going to keep on going. But if you don't have your money, if you don't have your money or your value in the fiat money, then inflation will not affect you in the same way. And I forget who posted this, but there was an image online of like an old car. I don't know if it was like a Chevrolet or whatever it was, like one of those cars from the 50s or the 60s. And they had the price in dollars at the time, and then the amount of silver that it would have cost to purchase that car. And then they put like a current model Dodge or something, something equivalent, like the equivalent of...
Oh, I bet it's significantly more silver today.
No, actually it was less silver. So the $60,000 car today, so multiple times the amount in dollars was the price of this brand new car. The amount of silver was about the same, or actually slightly less, to buy that car.
So silver has just stayed steady?
Well, actually, it basically was showing that it would cost you less silver to buy a brand new car, but it wasn't that much less. So yeah, pretty steady, or silver has slightly kept you above inflation. So silver, gold have historically kind of kept you up with inflation. Bitcoin in recent years has gone much faster, much higher than silver or gold. Brian, did you have more you wanted to share?
Yes, I just had one more point that I've been listening lately, but I don't really remember anyone talking about this. It's really the only way to fix what's going on right now would be like an economic freeze.
I want you to tell me more about that, because I've never heard that concept, an economic freeze. I want to hear more from Brian, so hopefully he can stay with us to explain that. There's more on the way here at 603-283-6160. You can share your thoughts with us on Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means, stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agrishosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agris Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agrishosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agrishosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. You can take control of the airwaves and bring up whatever you want to discuss. Ian, Bonnie, and Aria in the studio with you. I want to say thank you to Michael, and I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Iamao? I-A-M-A-I-O. Thank you, Michael, for being a platinum level supporter. And that means that Michael is contributing at least $25 a month to the AMPS program via Patreon. And it's super easy to do that. You just head over to amps.freetalklive.com. That'll take you right to our Patreon. You can sign up with your PayPal, with your credit card or debit card, and we appreciate it. It helps us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live to help us get the message of freedom and liberty on more great radio stations around the country. And you get some cool perks. So thank you, Michael, for supporting the show. And you can do that as well over at amps.freetalklive.com. Let's go back to Brian in Missouri. Brian, you were talking about inflation and the monetary situation out there, and you brought up this concept that I wanted to make sure you had a chance to explain. All you had a chance to say before we went to the break there was an economic freeze. What is that? Tell us more.
Basically, from my understanding, I can't remember who coined that term. It's probably been a good 10 years ago or so, back when like Obama was in office, and a lot of the inflation was getting real bad under him. That basically, the Fed can fluctuate anytime they want to on the value of stuff like way that's going on now again with the gas prices and the food prices and everything else. However, they can also, if they wanted to, that because we're coming out of a pandemic and everything else that's going on, they can be like, so for the next 6 months, year or two, or whatever they decide, that we're not going to add on any more inflation to where the market and everything else can balance back out to be able to actually help people get on their feet and everything.
Oh, well, they'll never.
I've never seen them do that. They don't even talk about wanting to do that because they think that adding more money into the, well, they don't think this, I don't think, but they claim that adding more money is helping the economy. So
well, it encourages spending. That's the whole core of Keynesian economics, right? And modern monetary theory is that you don't want people to hoard money. You don't want them to have savings. You want them to go out there and spend it, and that puts money into the economy, and it stimulates it, and it gets people, spending it instead of hoarding it.
Yeah, they certainly don't want deflation, which would actually reward people for saving money because it would make the money actually worth more over time. So they do the opposite. So what you're proposing is basically something that is in no way, shape, or form ever going to be an option for the Federal Reserve. That's just not the way that system is designed. Although you're right, in theory they could. They could do that. They could also deflate the money supply if they really really wanted to.
Yeah, just start yanking some of it out and don't replace it.
Yeah, but they're not gonna.
They do
How
that
would
all
they
the
do
time.
that? Like, take it from people, or how would they do that?
They regularly destroy like old bills, right?
Yeah.
So it would just be a matter of destroying old bills and not replacing them.
Yeah, they take in money all the time from banks for like deposits or whatever, and I don't know how all that system works, but
Maybe we're helping deflate the money supply by putting those Bitcoin stickers on all our dollars that they like to throw away.
I don't know what you're talking about, Bonnie. I have certainly never defaced any U.S. currency.
Oh, me either.
it's not defacing currency. There's actually a
Where's
website.
George, you know?
Brian, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. There's a website called Where's George? You ever seen the Where's George bills going around?
Yeah.
They've been around for years. It's a cool little site for listeners that don't know. Every now and then you might come across a bill that says Where's George, and then you go to the website, or whatever it is, and then you go there and you type in the serial number of the bill, and then it'll show you where that serial number has been entered by other people. So you enter in, I'm in Keene, New Hampshire, or whatever, and then so it'll show you, this bill was in somewhere in Missouri in February, and before that it was in California. So it shows you kind of where these things get around to.
It's just kind of gross.
It's a very interesting little experiment. And anyway,
It was a joke anyway. I mean, I'm on camera stamping some of my bills with the Bitcoin.com
I've certainly
thing.
talked about that many a time over the years.
I didn't know it was frowned upon.
I don't think it is.
No, it's
just
Except by the banks.
Well, it depends on the bank. So some banks will actually send those to be taken out of circulation, but not all of them do. And
I did once have a bank put 2 and 2 together and say, you keep bringing in bills that are stamped with this. I was like, that's such a bizarre coincidence. So I stopped taking them to that bank after that.
Yeah, there was one bank that specifically told me that they will... I'd brought a bunch of stamped bills in there, and they told me that they are just taking these out of circulation. So I stopped stamping the bills that I was making deposits at banks with. But not all banks do that, from what I understand. I don't know what percentage of them do. But what I was going to tell you about Where's George is there's a frequently asked questions on the Where's George website. And they've had lawyers look at this question, right? Because that's like what they do, right? They encourage people to get a Where's George stamp, or where's George.com or whatever stamp, and stamp bills.
You can just write it.
Well, it's the same thing. The same concern is this defacing currency? And so that's one of the questions on their frequently asked questions, and they say that no, it's not, as long as you don't obscure the serial number. So as long as you don't mutilate the bill, like make it completely, like if you stamp it enough and there's enough ink on it, you can't tell if it's a 1 or a 10 or a 5 or something. That
Just
would be
set it on fire at that point.
That's definitely a crime. So that is, I don't know what they call that crime, but it's like a felony to destroy a Federal Reserve
What's
note.
worse, burning a flag or burning a $100 bill?
Well, burning
worse?
a flag is legal.
Oh, it's legal?
It should be legal. It may not be legal in all jurisdictions, though.
Okay.
Depending on...
I'm pretty sure it's legal in New Hampshire.
It likely is. They may try to get you with some sort of a public burning violation, not that you've burned the flag per se, but that you've burned a thing in a public place without a permit or a fire permit or whatever. So
Man, it's kind of lame to burn it in your backyard in your fire pit with a burn permit, though.
It's never lame to burn a fire. To burn a flag, I mean. Ever.
So anyway, my point being that it's my understanding from the research that has been done by the folks over at Where's George is as long as you don't cover up the serial number and or mutilate the bill to the point of non-recognition, it is completely legal to stamp a bill.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's countless people who are, drawing on them and stuff like that. And just verifying that a $20 bill isn't fake requires you to deface the currency with one of those little
pens.
Special, but they leave a permanent mark.
They do. Yeah, that's true. All right, so number here is 603-283-6160. We've got more here. We haven't even gotten into the tips yet, and that's what my intention was here from the story at Bloomberg. The professor, Teresa Gilarducci, she is writing a story here for people that are feeling the inflation and how to deal with it. She talks about budgeting, which is, of course, good advice. It's always a good idea to know what you're spending, to know how often you're spending. If you're spending $5 a day on a cup of Starbucks coffee, that's going to add up. You can write down your budget and look at it later on and look at the end of the week or the end of the month and say, oh, well, I don't really need to buy Starbucks coffee every day, so you could cut that out, right? So there's certain things you may not really even be aware of that you're spending on. So budgeting's important. I'll agree with her on that one. She says to deal with gas prices, it's worth reconsidering public transportation if it's an option where you live. Fares are up about 8% compared with 38% for gasoline. Now may even be the time to sell your car. She says it certainly isn't the time to buy
You will own nothing.
and be happy.
Just use the public car.
So
the bus.
She's taken a lot of flack for suggesting public transportation here, and for someone who is in a circumstance in which there is ample public transportation, so if you live in a city, having a car can actually be quite a burden. So, for instance, if I lived in New York City, which I never would because I can't stand cities, but if I lived in New York City, there's no way I would own a car.
Well, New York City, yeah, but like even Austin, Texas, you can't live without a car.
Okay.
Well, maybe some people can that like live on campus and just go to fast food or whatever they do, but I don't know.
I mean, it depends on which part of the city. Like, there are places in Memphis, Tennessee, where you could easily live without a car.
Right.
You wouldn't be able. You can't just like travel 50 miles to go see a rock concert on a whim or anything like that. But if you just want to buy groceries and, you know, pay your bills and all of that and go to your job, you can do all of that just walking or riding a bus.
I feel like you can't have a fun life and have to rely on somebody else's car.
I tend to agree with that. Living life to its fullest requires owning a vehicle.
I tend to agree with you as well, but Bonnie, we're talking about people who are going to be
who have under $300,000.
Well, that's the article here, but for people who are very limited in their income, the lack of, or the fact that you are being brutalized by inflation is going to make life way less fun. It's going to actually result in you being able to do much less as far as any kind of vacation or any kind of just running off to go do a concert or something like that, because you're going to make it's going to be harder than ever to make ends meet. People are getting behind the ball. The cost of living is going up, and wages are not going to catch up with inflation here. So we'll continue. It's Free Talk Live. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United States is formally accusing Russia of war crimes in Ukraine. The decision came in a statement from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who accused Russia of indiscriminate attacks that are deliberately targeting civilians. He said the U.S. will continue to gather information to assist any legal process that arises. Beth Van Skak is the U.S. Ambassador at Large for Global Criminal Justice.
I think it's incredibly important to shed a light on what's happening within Ukraine so that the people of Ukraine understand that the world knows what they are suffering at the hands of an aggressive war that was launched unprovoked by Russia. It's also extremely important to continue to document what's happening on the ground. We don't want to lose that evidence, so it's extremely important that it be collected now and preserved.
As she was speaking there at the State Department podium, President Biden was on Air Force One, heading to Brussels for Thursday's emergency NATO and EU summits on Ukraine. Alliance leaders will move forward with fresh troop deployments in Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania and Slovenia, according to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He spoke to reporters aboard the president's plane.
Leaders will ratify some of the decisions taken by defense ministers last week, but they'll also task the military and political instruments of NATO to set out a longer-term game plan for what forces and capabilities are going to be required in those eastern flank countries.
There was sad news conveyed to President Biden as he flew. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84. She'd been battling cancer. Born in Czechoslovakia, her family moved to the United States when she was just 11, after fleeing first the Nazis and then the Communists. President Bill Clinton appointed her to be America's ambassador to the UN, and then promoted her to the State Department. She was a proponent of NATO expansion and urged the White House to take a stronger position on the conflict in Bosnia. Paying tribute at the UN today, the current US Ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Her story, a story of fleeing Czechoslovakia as a refugee at a young age and rising in the highest levels of the U.S. government, has echoed in my mind amid the current crisis in Ukraine. And I hope to do justice for her memory today.
And former President Bill Clinton said today that Madeleine Albright was a tireless champion for democracy and human rights. In other news today, the British government pledged to cut income tax before the country's next election. Chancellor Rishi Sunak presented his annual spring statement, cut fuel duty, but conceded inflation will surge to 7.6% this year. And on Capitol Hill, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has been facing another day of questioning in her quest to win a seat on the US Supreme Court. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the Ukrainians who are ending up in Russia as a result of Vladimir Putin's war. The authorities in the besieged city of Mariupol claim that the Russians are forcing some evacuating civilians to travel to Russia and then giving them no opportunity to transit to a third country. Indeed, the Russians earlier in the conflict insisted they would only honour some humanitarian corridors provided Ukrainians agreed to move themselves and their families to Russia. Andriy Zagorodnyuk is Ukraine's former defense minister, now an advisor to the country's vice prime minister, and he says the Russians are in essence kidnapping residents of Mariupol.
The city is very close to Russia geographically. Lots of people have families and so on. So in order to show that Russians still have some human face left, they're organizing a forced evacuations. So basically they're grabbing people on the streets, getting them in the homes and saying, okay, we're going to bring you to Russia. You're going to live in Russia. They take their passports and so on, but they're portraying it on TV as if they're helping people to evacuate. But in reality, that's a forced evacuation, and very few people who want to go to Russia.
Last weekend, the Biden administration indicated it is concerned about the possibility of prison camps being created for Ukrainians on the other side of the Russian border. Certainly, their fate could loom large in any talks designed to bring the conflict to an end. The main news again, the United States is formally accusing Russia of war crimes in Ukraine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken citing indiscriminate attacks deliberately targeting civilians. Madeleine Albright, the first woman to become US Secretary of State, has died aged 84. And the stage is set for Thursday's emergency NATO summit in Brussels. Leaders are expected to send additional troops to the alliance's eastern flank. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Jack Daniels announced today its plan to start marketing directly to children, adding, quote, "Why not?" Executives for the whiskey company told reporters that they've already slated dozens of television spots showing 10-year-old children drinking tumblers of Jack and Coke in playgrounds, and that the company was planning on, quote, "just seeing how it all played out."
Every year, Jack Daniels sells millions of dollars of great American whiskey to men and women all over the world. So, for our next ad campaign, we basically just thought, hey, why not just start marketing this stuff straight to 10-year-olds? I mean, if they catch us, but we'll see how far it goes, and hopefully we can sell some alcohol along the way. Sure, some parents groups could get upset, especially if we go with our idea of moms serving their kids cranberry Jack at snack time. But
in other news, a doomed rabbit will teach an 8-year-old a lesson about responsibility, and a torrent of soap issues from a wildly unexpected part of the dispenser. Well, that was it. It's all downhill from here, bud. For more, visit theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here if you want to join the show. Kicking off the second hour. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Bonnie.
That phone number for you if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're in this story here from Bloomberg. It's an opinion piece written by a professor, Teresa Gilarducci. She's a professor of economics, so you know she's bad news.
Oh, I'm sure she knows exactly what the ordinary person is going through in these troubling times. The average person, of course, meaning someone who makes less than $300,000 a year.
Yeah, that's what she says in this story here. And she is at, the New School for Social Research in New York City.
Is that N-U or N-E-W?
N-E-W.
Oh, okay.
New
I keep
School.
hearing this about New School, and I'm like, it just sounds weird.
These are...
Is that like New Kids on the Block, except they're leftists?
Well, I suspect it's going to be highly left school, and here's why. I mean, first of all colleges, obviously, for the most part, are pretty lefty, with the exception of a couple of them. I think Hinsdale College might be one of the few that isn't a hard left college. But where I grew up in Florida, there was a school called New College, and it was like known as being one of the most quote unquote progressive colleges around. And this one, I'm sure, is just as bad. Again, they even have it right in their title, New School for Social Research.
I was literally shocked a few weeks ago when we talked to somebody who was saying that he donates money to a conservative college. I was like, that exists?
That was Hillsdale.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know that something like that existed. I assumed they were all, first of all, public, or at least partially public.
Hillsdale doesn't take government money.
Yeah, this one doesn't take government money, and it sounds really cool, but...
The only education thing that's actually, stunned me lately was seeing the raffle of the school here in New Hampshire that is giving away a rifle and I think a pistol as part of a raffle to raise money.
This must be a private school for...
I feel fairly confident
it's a Catholic school.
I think
cool.
I think it's the Nightcat Reps, his kid's school.
Yeah, they seem pretty super cool. They like independence and all that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The Catholic Church, or the former church, I guess they got defrocked or something like that. I think he was telling us about that the other day. You're talking about Matt Santanastasso, the state rep who was one of the co-sponsors of the independence legislation here. He went to this. He doesn't even go to church. He's an atheist apparently, but he caught wind that these guys were, pretty freedom friendly. He sent his daughter there to go to their school, and then they did the brother, because he says they can't have priests because the Catholic Church has whatever they call it. I don't know what the word is. They can't be part of the
DSC.
They've kicked them out, basically. The Catholic Church kicked these people out.
Well, that's fine. The Catholic Church is full of crap anyway.
Yeah.
So
these people sound way better.
Yeah, so they can't have a priest, but the brother who was there giving a sermon was very pro-independence, very pro-secession, and apparently the crowd of people that was watching was also into it. So very, very interesting. I wish I knew what the name of the church was.
Might be time for me to go to church again.
This one's located in Richmond, New Hampshire, but I don't remember what.
I assumed it was the church right there by the school.
Which school?
The school that we're referring to.
Oh, I don't know. I think the church is the school, and I think they have a school on the campus or something like that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So back to the story here from Bloomberg. She's talking about what to do to deal with inflation. She talks about that gas prices obviously are up and suggests, well, maybe it's time to sell your car and take public transportation. Now,
maybe.
Yeah, if you live in a place where public transportation is fairly ubiquitous, then it could certainly be a cost savings.
What if you get felt up every time you ride the bus like Sarah?
There's a real downside to public transportation.
She called it to complain about that one day.
I remember.
Drug addicts, lunatics.
People smoking in her, vicinity.
There's some ugly, situations that can arise in public transportation. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's the downfall of being in the public. If you don't want to deal with that, then get your own car.
Yep, exactly.
I don't want to deal with that.
So let's go on here. It certainly isn't the time, she says, to buy a new or used car. Prices have stabilized a bit, but used car prices are still up more than 40% from a year ago, and new ones are up 12%. When it comes
that's curious, too, because I haven't seen any explanation for that. Like, I haven't seen, or not one that really resonates with me as an explanation of why used car. Like, I understand why property is up, right? Like real estate.
Yeah, but used cars are deflationary, right? So I'm also in the same boat as you. I'm just like, why is my old car suddenly probably worth way more than when I got it?
I could probably sell my Eclipse now for maybe twice what I paid for
That's amazing. I've heard, now I've not looked into this deeply, but maybe if you're
not twice.
If you're a car person or whatever and you know for sure like the reasons for this, feel free to give us a call. But what I heard was that they're having a problem manufacturing new cars. Because of the plant shutdowns and supply chain issues. They can't get the chips or whatever that they use.
They can't get the metals.
Whatever it is.
From Russia.
There's certain things that they can't easily get a hold of, and so therefore there's a delay on getting new cars.
I've definitely heard that about electronics from Chris from thinkpenguin.com.
So therefore, if there's a restriction of supply of new cars, that could result in someone who would otherwise be interested in buying a new car settling to buy a used car, and that could increase the demand in the used car market. I'm speculating. I don't know if that's the actual reason, because generally you've got two different types of people, right? Like there's the kind of person who's willing to buy a new car, and then there's the kind of person like me, like I'm never going to buy a new car.
You said settle for buying a used car, and I'm like, no, it's not being stupid is not settling. I'm not going to pay $30,000 for a brand new car that immediately loses 15% of its value.
Yeah, what's that word? It's not deflationary, like I said. What's the word? As soon as you get a car off the lot, it does what?
Loses value.
Yeah, but there's a word. I just can't remember.
Devalue?
Yeah, there's a different word. Anyways.
I don't know what that is. But the point that I was making it from the perspective of the person who would buy a new car, right? Because that's the kind of person who will not buy a used car if they love buying new cars. I don't know who these people are, but they must exist, right? Like those people must.
They work for the
Mark's
government.
probably one of them. They must exist because obviously someone has to buy a new car in order for there to be used cars. So thank you to everybody that buys new cars. Like if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be able to buy used cars. But
that would explain why the used car sales are going up, is because people just aren't buying new cars anymore. They just got sick of it. And they're like, no, I'll just buy a used one. I'm not going to pay $30,000 for one.
I got smart.
Yeah, but again, used cars are up even more, like percentage-wise, they're up dramatically by comparison to even the new cars. So I don't know. If you know more about the car situation, feel free to give us a call. Moving on. She says when it comes to food, don't be afraid to explore. Prices for animal-based food products will certainly increase.
I mean, she's absolutely right. You can get bread made out of crickets now, as I understand it. I mean,
are you serious?
Yeah, all you got to do, you just have to be willing to explore. Like this new world that we live in, you're going to be broke. You're not going to own anything. So go ahead and make peace with eating crickets. Everyone will be happier. You'll be happier. Look, you like crickets. Crickets, so much protein.
You like crickets.
This is just a puff piece for the same stuff that we've been talking about. How you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy about it. You're going to eat bugs or whatever it was that Conan was talking with us about, 2 months ago. But yeah, they are. It's some little cricket powder to be used in the place of flour, maybe?
Oh my God.
I don't remember.
One thing I've noticed that I've never seen before in my life, but I saw a whole bunch of it at Market Basket, is bread made out of potatoes. And I was like, is this a new thing? I
don't think that's new.
I've never seen it before. And then we suddenly saw a whole bunch of it in the regular bread section. It's not new?
I don't think that's new.
It made me think maybe we have a shortage of wheat and now people are making potato bread, but I'd never seen that before.
So she goes on, she says, meat prices have increased about 14% from February of 2021 and will go up even more. Though your palate may not be used to it, tasty meat substitutes include vegetables, which she says prices are up a little over 4%.
I wouldn't even call vegetables a meat substitute. I just like vegetables, you know?
You're absolutely right. I ate one of these Impossible Burgers finally, like 2 years late. It's not at all. Maybe this one was old from Burger King.
Okay.
Maybe this one was old or something. It had been sitting there for a while, but it was nothing at all like an actual burger patty.
As a kid, my mom would eat Boca burgers. She wasn't a vegetarian. She just liked them, and they were so gross.
All right, well, let's talk about that, because doesn't Burger King cook them on the spot?
Yeah. Well, in theory.
Okay. Yeah, because they shouldn't be just leaving.
Well, this Burger King, I think,
patties
is gross every time I've been there.
There's more coming up here at 603-283-6160. You can join us, and we're going to put what's on your mind. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us at 603-283-6160. Maybe you've got some advice here to, how are you handling the increases in prices that come along with inflation, which for listeners that are new to the show, the actual definition of inflation, the real definition is an increase in the money supply. And that is what the Federal Reserve and the federal government are doing to us, and to, the federal fiat currency issuers and all the other countries are doing to them. It's not just happening here. It's happening all over the place. So what do you do about that? How are you changing your lifestyle? What are you adjusting? Have you tweaked your spending habits? Feel free to give us a call. Share your thoughts with us. We're sharing an article from somebody who's obviously got a leftist perspective, a statist perspective here. But that said, maybe there's some good ideas in here. We'll continue to dissect it. With you tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Bonnie.
Yes.
I haven't heard any terrible ideas from this person. I mean, it's good. It's a good advice, right? Expand your palate. Instead of eating, beef every night, you might try some vegetables. Try a salad. That's generally good advice. If you find that gasoline is too expensive, sell your car. Take a bus. It's not for me, but I can see why for someone it could be considered good advice. It's just the whole of it is alarming because it's all directed toward eat bugs, own nothing.
It steps in that direction. She hasn't come right out and said that at this point. But.
I mean, I'm sure. I'm going to speculate at some point in this article, she is going to say, instead of splurging on these concert tickets, just go see it online in the metaverse.
Oh, God.
My God. You're
I'm making
right.
that prediction now. There's somewhere in this article an attempt to plug the metaverse instead of doing that thing in real life.
If it's not in this article, it's coming.
It's
right?
just that I don't think anything she said is bad, as in like, oh, that's a bad idea, don't do that. It's just that they're not comparable. Owning your own car is nothing like having to rely on the bus, the public transport. It's just nothing the same. And telling people like, oh, it's fine. It's fine that the government's making you have to do this is messed up, in my opinion.
We're going to continue here. First, though, Bradley is on the line, calling us from Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live, Bradley.
Hi, you guys were talking about colleges and their political affiliations earlier, so I figured I'd provide some information about some libertarian schools.
Are there such things?
Yeah, I know 2 or 3. So, one of them is, like you mentioned, it's Hillsdale College.
I've heard Hillsdale's more conservative.
I've heard of Praxis. Isn't that online?
I don't know about Praxis. That sounds kind of familiar, but Hillsdale is definitely conservative leaning. I don't know if I would say they're exactly libertarian, but
yeah.
I did see some principled Austrian economics stuff coming.
Yeah, I think you're likely to get better economics classes at a college like Hillsdale, but everything I've ever heard about Hillsdale, it's a conservative leaning college that is more friendly, I think, to a libertarian viewpoint. You probably won't feel as put out in a place like that, but I don't know if it's as bad as like a religious school as far as conservatism though. So it's probably not like, the Jerry Falwell school. It's probably not that bad, but that's just me speculating based on some of the people I've met who had some experience with Hillsdale. I think, Bonnie, you mentioned this on the air. We had a gentleman we met at one of the parties before Liberty Forum who was a teacher, I guess, there, or might still be a teacher there, and he seemed pretty libertarian.
Oh, Robert Murphy went to Hillsdale. That's where I've heard it. And he's a Austrian
He's pretty
economic.
freedom-loving, yeah, for sure. What else, Bradley?
But now, my school that I go to, it's Northwood University, and it's also in Michigan. I'd say they're probably definitly libertarian.
Probably definitely is a strong recommendation.
Do they take public funds?
They're a private school. I don't know if they take public funds or not, but I do know that they have a close relationship with libertarian organizations like Cato and the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, which is in that city.
And what are they called? Northwood
University.
Northwood. Okay.
And they teach libertarian stuff. Like I said, I'm a student there, and like our philosophy class was the philosophy is libertarian philosophy.
Wow, that's fantastic. Glad to hear it.
The economics is Austrian economics, and in April they actually have a webinar called the Freedom Seminar, and I definitely recommend for people to check that out.
Excellent.
I mean, if we're going to have, conservative schools and liberal schools, then I guess I'm relatively happy that we have libertarian schools, but I'd rather us just have schools that teach all of these ideas, and maybe not all of these ideas, but instead of making it like, oh, well, I'm a libertarian, so I need to go to a libertarian school, how about we just have the school that teaches what is correct?
Yeah, it's really weird. I've always thought it was, when I first found out about Austrian economics, I was like, well, isn't one obviously right? Austrian economics and Keynesianism is wrong, and why haven't people figured that out and just kicked them out of the other colleges? It was just such a strange realization to me that the wrong one is the one that has taken over colleges.
Well, that one makes sense, though, because that one is the one that gives intellectuals like economists and philosophers, it gives them jobs, right? The market has no need for an economist. Like this person, no one's going to hire this person. They're not an accountant. They're just someone who sits around pontificating about complicated economic matters. No one needs anyone to calculate inflation if there's no central planning, right?
Yeah.
So the entire apparatus is built to give these intellectuals employment, and in a free market, no one will want to hire them. Almost no one would be willing to pay Karl Marx to sit around pondering, social ideas and socialism and communism as he did in a free market.
Because our lives would be too good.
Well, and also the government's college system exists essentially off of statism. I mean, they're funded through statism. They're funded through the state and taxpayers. Now, this college that you're in, Bradley, Northwood University, it describes itself, as you said, as a private college. So that kind of wording makes me think that they may not actually take government money, but I don't know for sure. So, those colleges that do, though, right, like pretty much all public universities, which is the big ones, right, and even not the universities, but like Keene State College where we are, so state college, so it has got the word state in it, right, so it's government funded. Even though they take money from their students, they also take a bunch of money from the state, and so obviously if you're getting paid by the state, you have an interest in propping up the state, and so Keynesianism certainly does that.
Yes, it does.
Bradley, anything else? Go ahead.
There's one more college. I don't know. It is a public college, and I'm not sure how libertarian it is, but George Mason University has something called the Statist Center, which is, a libertarian thing. So
where's that?
Check that out, too.
Isn't that D.C.?
What did you say the center was called?
Mercatus.
Mercatus.
How is that a libertarian thing? I've never heard of it.
I've heard of it.
There's like I don't know what they would be called, like a think tank or a research center.
Yeah, they did the Freedom in the 50 States study before Cato took over the Freedom in the 50 States.
Okay.
Jason Sorens, who's the founder of the Free State Project, was working for the Mercatus Center when that happened. So I know that they were involved in that in the early years of that Freedom in the 50 States study. Bradley, thanks for the call tonight, man. Definitely appreciate the clue and the hints there for people that for people that actually want to go to college, which
it actually sounds fun if it's not all statist propaganda. College always sounded fun to me until I realized it was all statist propaganda, and apparently you have to live in Michigan to go to some good ones, and Michigan's really cold.
Yeah, college still didn't sound like fun to me, but for those that are interested,
did.
Yeah, you can party without college, though. There's more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United States is formally accusing Russia of war crimes in Ukraine. The decision came in a statement from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who accused Russia of indiscriminate attacks that are deliberately targeting civilians. He said the U.S. will continue to gather information to assist any legal process that arises. Beth Van Skak is the U.S. Ambassador at Large for Global Criminal Justice.
I think it's incredibly important to shed a light on what's happening within Ukraine so that the people of Ukraine understand that the world knows what they are suffering at the hands of an aggressive war that was launched unprovoked by Russia. It's also extremely important to continue to document what's happening on the ground. We don't want to lose that evidence, so it's extremely important that it be collected now and preserved.
As she was speaking there at the State Department podium, President Biden was on Air Force One, heading to Brussels for Thursday's emergency NATO and EU summits on Ukraine. Alliance leaders will move forward with fresh troop deployments in Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania and Slovenia, according to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He spoke to reporters aboard the president's plane.
Leaders will ratify some of the decisions taken by defense ministers last week, but they'll also task the military and political instruments of NATO to set out a longer-term game plan for what forces and capabilities are going to be required in those eastern flank countries.
There was sad news conveyed to President Biden as he flew. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84. She'd been battling cancer. Born in Czechoslovakia, her family moved to the United States when she was just 11, after fleeing first the Nazis and then the Communists. President Bill Clinton appointed her to be America's ambassador to the UN and then promoted her to the State Department. She was a proponent of NATO expansion and urged the White House to take a stronger position on the conflict in Bosnia. Paying tribute at the UN today, the current U.S. Ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Her story, a story of fleeing Czechoslovakia as a refugee at a young age and rising in the highest levels of the U.S. government, has echoed in my mind amid the current crisis in Ukraine. And I hope to do justice for her memory today.
And former President Bill Clinton said today that Madeleine Albright was a tireless champion for democracy and human rights. In other news today, the British government pledged to cut income tax before the country's next election. Chancellor Rishi Sunak presented his annual spring statement, cut fuel duty, but conceded inflation will surge to 7.6% this year. And on Capitol Hill, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has been facing another day of questioning in her quest to win a seat on the U.S. Supreme Court. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open if you want to join the show here. It's Ian, Aria, and Bonnie in the studio tonight. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us online anytime at freetalklive.com and join our social media website at social.freetalklive.com. It is a Mastodon system. That means it operates like Twitter, but without the evil mega corporation.
And unlike Trump, we actually use ours.
Yeah, that's right. I just posted to my profile today. You can go to social.freetalklive.com and you can see that there. Follow whichever hosts that you want and whichever other listeners that you want because it's an open source platform. It is Mastodon, which means that it is federated. So as long as other Mastodons haven't defederated or disfederated themselves from us, then you should be able to follow us from other Mastodons and vice versa. You can follow other people on other Mastodons from our platform if you've got an account with us. It's a pretty cool system.
That's really cool.
We did test it last night, by the way, since we were talking about Trump's Truth Social, so-called website that he launched a month ago and has only posted one time in the first month of his entire website's existence. That site is using Mastodon, but they must have disfederated it from all the other ones because I could not follow Trump's profile on his Truth Social.
Maybe he just has you blocked.
Mastodon.
Well, I thought all of this was set up in a way that you had to sort of request federation.
No.
Like, I thought we had to work it out with the people at Liberdon to get our service to sort of.
No, the way that I understand this, Arya, is so Liberdon, as you mentioned, is another libertarian Mastodon server. It was the first one, the one that kind of became the first libertarian Mastodon. And our server...
I think I still have an account there.
Social.freetalklive.com is the second one. What you can actually do with Mastodon is you can actually take your account on Liberdon if you want to, and you can not close it fully, but you can kind of redirect it to your existing account, your preferred account. There's a way to set that up.
So is Liberdon still open?
Yeah, they're still there.
Are they federated with ours?
So as I understand it, the way Mastodon works is you are automatically federated with the entire what they call Fediverse.
But have they blocked us?
To my knowledge, I don't
see why Liberdon would ever block us.
I think she was asking about other sites, but no.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't think you can know which sites are disfederated. I don't know how all the technicals work there, but as I understand it, if you know the address of a person on another Mastodon server, you can put that into our server and it'll connect you over there, unless there's some sort of blockage. And with the Truth Social site, there's definitely a blockage. There's no, from what I can tell, you cannot subscribe to somebody on Truth Social from outside of Truth Social, which is really stupid of them.
Yeah.
It is, but there's no one there I want to subscribe to anyway.
I would have followed Trump just to follow the entertainment, just for the entertainment value. But there's no entertainment value because he's not posting to his account. So anyway, you can check our site out. It's over at social.freetalklive.com. Let's go to Stephen. He's in Georgia, and then we got more supposed tips here from Bloomberg about dealing with inflation. We'll get back into those. Stephen, go ahead.
Are you on the phone?
Stephen, you are on the phone.
Hey, what's up? I have an idiot coworker who hates he hates libertarians because we want to own guns and smoke weed. But whatever. Hey, Nikki. First of all, the word that you were looking for is depreciate.
Depreciate. Thank you. I'm not Nikki. I'm Bonnie.
Okay.
But
Bonnie. Sorry.
yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
I didn't know
Thank you.
if he was yelling at his employee or what. Okay.
No.
Stephen, what were you calling about?
No, yeah. So the way to beat inflation is super simple. One, stop holding money, right? If you get paid in U.S. dollars, immediately get rid of it, right? The very moment that it comes in, pay bills is real practical. Get gold is real practical. But turn it into something that, one, you need, and two, is barterable or retransferable into U.S. currency.
Like guns and weed.
Guns, but more so right now, ammo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a bad suggestion at all. Other things that can last a long time would include alcohol. Something you can just store in a dry, dark place, and then you could use someday for trading for things. Cigarettes to a lesser extent, because that can obviously go bad. I think over the tobacco can get stale, right?
But dude, if someone hasn't had a cigarette for a while, and
they'll pay big
you
time.
have the cigarettes. Yeah, they're not gonna be like, oh man, You've got Marlboros, but they're 2 years
Too old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, they'll be.
That's a good point.
They'll be chain smoking those things.
Toilet paper. That's another one that everybody thought was really important 2 years ago, and they're going to think that's important again for sure when shortages strike back. Of course, the problem with toilet paper is it takes up a lot of space. You won't be able to get probably as much for a roll of toilet paper as you would for a pack of cigarettes. I suspect.
Alcohol cigarettes is good. I like that. Those are the kinds of things that Arya would hoard too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't smoke anymore, but
that's good. You don't want to smoke your supply.
Right.
So as long as you can hold the cigarettes without being tempted to smoke them, just
easily
put them away,
done.
then you can make bank. Later on down the line.
I think alcohol's a safer bet, though. I see alcoholics surviving the apocalypse much better than the smokers.
But
these smokers are going to get overrun by the zombies. They're going to run out of breath halfway down the street. They're going to collapse. And
these are all excellent suggestions so far, Stephen. What else do you have?
Get your monthly bills down to zero. So the way that I say to practically do that is to homestead. Learn how to garden. I am currently buying what in Georgia is called an oversized shed, and I'm making it livable because I don't want to pay rent anymore.
Well, wait a minute. Where are you going to put the shed?
What is the temperature there in Georgia right now?
Hey, Preston, what do you think it is? 50, 60 degrees, 65, 70?
Yeah, because
it gets hot during the summer.
It's like 30 degrees here right now.
Okay, but where are you going to put
You're not going to zero that out. You've got to have some heat.
But wait, where are you going to put the shed? I mean, you can put heat in these things or whatever, but you said you don't want to pay rent.
You're not zeroing out your bills if you have to provide heat.
Obviously, but he said you don't want to pay rent, but you're going to buy a shed. Yeah. You have to set that somewhere. So where are you going to put it?
Oh, I own 2 acres.
Well, you're still going to be paying
rent to the government.
The government, right?
Yeah, I've just never even heard of this concept of zeroing out your bills. That sounds impossible.
It's a goal.
I think the trick to surviving inflation may be to be wealthy enough that you just don't need money.
Well, I mean, obviously that helps, but the average person can't just snap their fingers and do that.
Make $400,000 a year.
Yeah, all you have to do is like own 6 or 7 acres of land, build your own house, and grow your own food. I mean, it's easy. Duh. Mommy and Daddy gave me 6 acres of land. Why can't everyone be me?
Yeah, that's not. You're being facetious. Obviously, that's not within the reach.
I'm exaggerating what Stephen's position is, but I mean, you do have to acquire 2 acres of land before one can do any of these things.
And some places that's cheaper than others. I mean, if you're out in the middle of BF nowhere, then an acre of land isn't going to cost you much at all. But what did you pay for these acres of land, and when did you get them?
I bought them, and I should have bought them years ago, but I bought them back in 2021, December, so about 3 months ago. I paid cash money, and I paid like $13,200 an acre.
$13,200 per acre?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
so the trick is to have just under 30 grand sitting around in cash.
Do you have road frontage, or do you have to like hike for a while until you get to it?
So in Georgia, it's illegal to sell land unless it's accessible via the road.
Okay.
Weird.
And so I tried to buy some that was only accessible via the river, but I'm not preparing for inflation. I'm preparing for an economic collapse caused by inflation. So
I think what you've given is generally pretty good advice, though, is try to get your bills down as low as possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, zero is pretty difficult to attain.
And being self-sufficient is a great idea. I've just been, every day I'd think like, oh, I need to can something. And then I'm like, I feel like I'm too late. I'm just going to die and we'll be fine.
You're not too late.
Well, and I'll say this before y'all close me out. I'm not going for the most comfortable lifestyle, right? I'm buying solar panels, but I'm not buying enough to run central AC.
Right. Yeah. Well, on a tiny house, you probably aren't going to have. I don't know how many panels you need to run central AC, but on a little tiny home, I don't know if that's going to cut it. But certainly, solar panels are more efficient now than they've ever been. There's no doubt about that. Thanks for the call, Stephen. Good suggestions. If you've got some you want to share, join us here on Free Talk Live.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, you can bring up what you want here. You got some advice for people that are dealing with inflation, which is almost everyone, with the exception of maybe Joel Valenzuela, who's a friend of the show. He's co-hosted with us a couple of times over the years, who actually lives
out there on the seacoast.
Yeah, he lives on the seacoast, and he started, I think in 2015, to get all his payments in cryptocurrency and spends only cryptocurrency to live his life.
It's amazing.
Which is amazing. Now, obviously, he can use some... There's certain cheats out there that make that possible, that make that easier than it sounds. But it'd be... I think at some point we're going to have Joel back on the show to give us an update on what's going on in the world of Dash, because there's some cool stuff that the
I've nothing else. We'll see him at Forkfest.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to take that long. There's some things that the folks over at Dash are working on right now, like a Know Your Customer free, meaning without Know Your Customer, debit card.
Ooh.
Which is pretty cool.
Isn't that the first of its kind?
It would be, from what I can tell, the first of its kind. So it's in the beta stages right now, and I know the captain has the app in question, and Bonnie, I think, does as well. So a couple of our hosts will be able to test this for us, because Aria, you and I can't do things like crypto-related things.
Regrettably.
We also can't ask anyone to do crypto things on our behalf. So anyway, the Dash thing is pretty. It's looking pretty cool. So we'll look forward to hearing from him, and we'll get an update from him on what sort of tools he uses to live his life exclusively on crypto. But they're out there because he's been doing it now for 7 years or something like that. So
it's impressive.
Pretty cool stuff. Let's go back to your calls and thoughts, though. Sarah is in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, Sarah.
Yes, there was about 14 off-the-road vehicle was found, and only 9 tickets were issued. And what they do is they run around in bunches. There's about 10 off-the-road vehicles that drive together, and when they try to catch them, they all run off. So they're trying to play little tricks with the police. And I'm thinking, do you think by getting these off-the-road vehicles off the street is really going to help with traffic fatalities? You know, they act like they're really going to do something.
Are we doing this off-road vehicle thing again? Sarah, you don't even know what type of vehicle you're talking about, remember? We went over this a few months ago.
No, I know what kind of vehicle. I see them people driving around on the street. It's got no doors. It's got metal frames.
Well, like a Polaris has no doors, right?
She's talking about like an ATV, all-terrain vehicle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, off-the-road vehicle. But
Wait, what? You think they're going to ban these things?
No, the people drive it on the regular street. That's illegal. So
not always. Like there's
It
type of
depends.
Polarises that are not illegal to drive on the streets, and they look so weird. They don't even look like cars. They look like rectangles.
Yeah. So my whole point is, I mean, they really believe that by getting these off-the-road vehicles, they're really going to improve traffic safety. And as we have noted, if you run a red light and at 50 miles an hour, it doesn't matter if it's a off-the-road vehicle or a regular vehicle.
I don't think those things can go 50 miles an hour. I mean, I've never driven one, so I can't say for sure, but I don't think that they have that kind of speed. I could be wrong about that. Like generally, like a moped can't go above 35.
Yeah, but they're considered more dangerous when they hit people because they don't have the right kind of a bumper or something like that. And I really don't think it makes much difference. You could use a regular vehicle, and if you hit people over.
Wow, correction. Apparently the most powerful ATVs can reach 80 miles an hour.
I'm just kind of surprised,
Wow.
Sarah. I feel like your position on this has changed. If I recall correctly, initially you wanted these things banned because you thought that off-the-road vehicles being used on the road were making things deadlier for pedestrians. Am I understanding correctly that you're now saying it doesn't make a difference?
Right. It doesn't matter what vehicle you drive. It's your careless, reckless driving, drink driving, driving under drugs or marijuana or speeding or just
Look, I've driven
driving.
while on pot before. I drove more slowly and more carefully when I was high.
Well, she's not wrong to say that reckless driving is going to put people in danger. I mean, that's definitely a fact. Whether you're driving an ATV or whether you're driving a regular car or you've got a bus that you're in charge of, if you are drunk or something like that, that is going to increase the likelihood of having a bad time and possibly hurting somebody. But look, Sarah, according to the Albuquerque Police Department, ATVs are not actually legal in Albuquerque. So apparently, you know, if those things are on the streets, they are potentially able to be pulled over and then towed.
Right, and they play a little game. They run off. So yeah, I'm just bringing up the.
Well, that's a pretty risky game. I mean, running from the cops is going to catch you an extra, probably
Especially
a felony.
when you can't get over 80 miles an hour.
This is true, but you can also probably go places the cops can't.
Well, you know what? Once you get caught here in Albuquerque, you might not even do 3 days in jail. I mean, they're so lenient with the crimes here. They just play little fun games like that.
You do understand that when you first get arrested, you usually only go to jail as long as you need to stay there to get bailed out. And then you have a trial. And then if you get convicted, you may go to jail for a longer period of time. Although odds are for an ATV violation, you're probably just going to have to deal with them impounding your ATV and a minor, likely criminal charge. I doubt.
Well, probably not if you're running from the cops. That's probably
if
worse.
you run from the cops, you're probably going to go to jail.
Sarah, do you have a solution for this problem that is pedestrians being fatally hit by vehicles?
Well, I'm just waiting for the self-driving cars. I think that's our only solution because nobody wants to be told what they did wrong, or nobody ever wants to be told. They don't want a ticket. They don't want any kind of citation. They want to do whatever they want with no consequences.
Yeah.
And this is the reality.
So
yeah,
I can never see a car or the Google Maps or anything like that ever being trustworthy enough that everyone can be riding driver-free cars. I just can't see that ever happening. in San Antonio, there's all these overpasses where you're on, well, like double-decker highway parts where there's some highway on the ground right underneath the highway on top that's in the air. And it would always get confused and think I was on the top when I was on the bottom and so forth. And it would tell me, like, turn here. And I'd be like, okay, if I turn there, I would die. So imagine at the future, Google is driving everyone's cars. That'd be happening all the time. Be like, okay, we're going to turn now.
I think that it's going to be a messy progress because of that, but I think that at some point the auto driving will get so good that it will rarely screw up. I don't know if that's going to be in the next 5 years or 10 years or what, but...
See, I disagree. I think we're going to have flying cars before we have any of that.
Yeah, flying cars would be better.
Well, they're already testing them out.
They've been testing those things since the 1970s. The Mahler Air Sky Car was invented in like 79 or something like that, and it never went anywhere.
They don't want it to because that's way too much freedom.
Well, that may be their reason, but they're not going to tell you that publicly. The reason is it's dangerous, and so you got to have 1,000-hour.
Everything is dangerous,
right? But they're going to say you got to have 1,000-hour pilot license in order to be able to drive one of these. It's not going to be like where you can just go and pass an easy driver test and then get your driver's license. Like
there shouldn't even be a test. Like, okay, you have a car that you can fly. Okay. Well, then I guess you can drive a flying car.
The government isn't going to just not allow there to be no test. That's not
the government's about to die.
The driving test doesn't do any good.
No, it doesn't. But it does create a bureaucracy, and it gives them the excuse to hand out cards and hire bureaucrats.
True.
The government isn't going to be around long enough for Google Maps to iron out all the problems that would kill people if cars were self-driving themselves.
I hope you're right about that, Bonnie.
And Google Maps is the best map, so that's why I keep referencing them.
Yeah, I appreciate your optimism there, Bonnie. I really hope the government goes away at some point. That would be absolutely fantastic. Sarah, thanks for the call tonight. The number here is 603-283-6160. You can join the show and bring up what you want. Now, the thing is, and I didn't get to ask Sarah this question, but I suspect that she would want to force people to purchase a self-driving car. So even though while I believe the technology is going to get there at some point, it's getting close already. So I think it will be there at some point. I personally am not interested in it. I like the idea of driving. I enjoy the act of driving, even though I would, on one hand, I do value the idea of like having the extra hours that I would have for not having to drive because I could then be more productive.
Well, okay, then take a bus. It's just the same thing as saying everybody needs to...
Buses don't go everywhere you need to go.
Well, I feel like this is really not that different than telling everyone you need to just get on the bus because it's just like it's a freedom thing. I want to be able to, if I want to, just drive into the woods, not... or whatever. Like I don't want to have to be forced to only drive on the roads.
I don't want a computer telling me where to go.
Nope, you can't go that way.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm going to be Will Smith of iRobot all the way to the end. No, I'm not. My car's not driving me. I'm driving my car. Yeah. End of story.
Yeah, I like the idea of me being able to control those things. Like
yes.
I don't like software being in charge of whether I live or die.
That's such a weird position for a person to have. Imagine that.
Right. The number is 603-283-6160. But it is going to be interesting to find out what most people think about self-driving cars. Are most people willing to give up the freedom of being able to drive? More coming up. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A humanitarian resolution on Ukraine drafted by Russia has failed to pass the UN Security Council. China was the only other country to back the draft. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
13 members of the Security Council's 15-seat panel abstained from voting on Moscow's resolution. The draft called for safe humanitarian access to Ukraine and the protection of civilians, but it faced overwhelming opposition because it didn't recognize Russia's role in the conflict. The US described the resolution as farcical. China was the only country, alongside Russia, to vote in favour, saying it did so to encourage the international community to focus solely on the humanitarian response in Ukraine and to scale up its response. Meanwhile, the General Assembly is set to continue an emergency special session for a second day on Thursday before it considers 2 other competing humanitarian resolutions also addressing the situation in Ukraine.
U.S. President Joe Biden has arrived in Europe for meetings in Brussels and Poland with European and NATO leaders. The visit comes amid intense fighting, such as in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol, as well as worsening civilian casualties. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84. She'd been battling cancer. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Madeleine Albright arrived in the United States at the age of 11 after her family fled first the Nazis in Czechoslovakia, then the Communists. When President Clinton picked her to be America's ambassador to the UN, she would later recall it wasn't easy.
There are 15 members of the Security Council, so 14 men sat there staring at me, and I thought, well, if I don't speak today, then the voice of the United States will not be heard.
Success there saw her promoted to the State Department, where she backed NATO's expansion and pushed the White House to respond more intensely to the crisis in Bosnia. Her death at the very moment war has returned to Europe is a sad coda to a life devoted to democracy and human rights.
Wall Street struggled to gain ground in Wednesday's trading as oil prices rose 5%. The backdrop of the conflict in Ukraine continued to worry investors who are still trying to navigate volatile trading sessions. FSN's Nick Harper reports.
US markets have been seesawing this week, down on Monday, up Tuesday and down again on Wednesday. The uneven ground and volatility created by the conflict in Ukraine has made it difficult for investors to find a firm footing this week. Wednesday's session was further hampered by oil prices rising once again, US crude increasing around 5% to almost $115 a barrel. At the close, the Dow was down 1.3%, the S&P had fallen 1.2%, while the Nasdaq finished 1.3% lower.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the Ukrainians who are ending up in Russia as a result of Vladimir Putin's war. The authorities in the besieged city of Mariupol claim that the Russians are forcing some evacuating civilians to travel to Russia and then giving them no opportunity to transit to a third country. Indeed, the Russians earlier in the conflict insisted they would only honour some humanitarian corridors provided Ukrainians agreed to move them themselves and their families to Russia. Andriy Zagorodnyuk is Ukraine's former defense minister, now an advisor to the country's vice prime minister, and he says the Russians are in essence kidnapping residents of Mariupol.
The city is very close to Russia geographically. Lots of people have families and so on. So in order to show that Russians still have some human face left, they're organizing a forced evacuations. So basically they're grabbing people on the streets, getting them in the homes and saying, okay, we're going to bring you to Russia. You're going to live in Russia. They take their passports and so on, but they're portraying it on TV as if they're helping people to evacuate. But in reality, that's a forced evacuation, and very few people who want to go to Russia.
Last weekend, the Biden administration indicated it is concerned about the possibility of prison camps being created for Ukrainians on the other side of the Russian border. Certainly, their fate could loom large in any talks designed to bring the conflict to an end. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. A humanitarian resolution on Ukraine drafted by Russia has failed to pass the UN Security Council, with China being the only other country to back the draft. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84 after battling cancer. Wall Street struggles to gain ground in another volatile session Wednesday as oil prices rise 5%. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitz.
A report released Tuesday by physicists at Stanford University revealed that the entire known universe, from the whole of human civilization to the totality of matter and energy, is actually the fictional setting of a cop show called Hard Case. According to authors of the report, existence as we know it was created solely to provide the framework for the primetime drama that airs weekly in a parallel universe, and that every historical event prior to the show's September 2008 pilot, including the Renaissance, World War II, evolution, the September 11th attacks, and the presidential administrations of Washington through Clinton, never actually happened and are merely part of the elaborate backstory crafted by Hard Case creator and showrunner Dominic Egan.
We used to believe that our universe operated under immutable laws of thermodynamics and gravitational relativity, but now we know everything just comes from the minds of Hard Case's 12 staff writers. Overall, it seems like a very well-written show.
Physicists have theorized that the universe as we know it will cease to exist whenever Hard Case airs its final episode.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. We're kicking off the third hour of the program. Coming up, what is a Perma Crisis? Aria's got a story about that. You can, of course, bring up whatever's on your mind. We've been talking about some suggestions from some pro-government professor who wrote an article over at Bloomberg. This got shared around quite a bit on social media because, well, a lot of people were making fun of it, about what to do because of inflation, how to handle that, the continually increasing prices, some suggestions for that. We actually had some great suggestions from a caller last hour. He talked about, try to reduce your bills. That's a good suggestion. He said try to take them to zero, which obviously is a little difficult.
I think zero is impossible. I've never even heard someone say it. Just try to take your bills to zero. I really think that's impossible.
I think even he had to admit that he'd still be paying property taxes on the property that he wanted to build his tiny home on. But certainly there are ways to...
Even if you grow your own food, you're going to have to be watering the plants and buying the seeds in the soil and
in
the fertilizer.
In theory, you could live on a piece of property that water runs through, and then you could get some level of free water from that. So there are definitely some ways to reduce your bills.
Yeah, but I'm talking zero.
Yeah, getting to zero is a near impossible task. And in fact, the closer you get to zero, the more you're probably going to have to spend, on
like to have
expensive
chickens.
Things.
You got to feed your chickens. Then you'll get eggs. But
well, chickens will eat just about anything, as I understand it, from what Conan has said. I mean, throw them some rotting watermelons or whatever, and they're totally happy.
But you want your eggs to be nutritious. Like, you can feed them soy. But if they're eating soy, then you're eating soy. You want to feed them stuff like meat and good stuff, which I thought was weird until I learned recently that chickens eat meat.
Wouldn't surprise me. So we've got a few more suggestions here from this story, and of course you're welcome to weigh in at 603-283-6160. And let's jump back into this here. So she's talking about, again, food prices are up. She makes suggestions as to using alternatives, suggesting people could use lentils or beans instead of eating meat or vegetables, which she says vegetable prices are up a little over 4%. Lentils and beans, those prices are up 9%. And she compares that to meat prices, which have increased about 14% from February of last year.
Having a bunch of dry beans is a good idea.
And we already knew that Americans eat too much meat, or they eat a lot more meat than anyone else does.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it's not surprising that one of the first things that, people suggest is, well, eat less meat. It's more expensive than everything else you're eating. But Americans are never going to go for it.
And beans are so good for you. And if you eat them like 5 times a day, I think it's 3 times a day. You have to get 3 servings of beans a day anyway. It's hard. When I had this
That's
app,
a lot of beans, man.
I had this app called the Daily Dozen, which is like the dozen different things you can eat every day to get all the nutrients you need in the whole day. And it's impossible for me to eat that much food. It's just so much.
I don't eat 3 times a day, much less 3 orders of beans.
Yeah.
It's just like a side of beans, but yeah.
You had mentioned, Aria, that you had tried the vegetable Impossible Burger at some point, and you weren't impressed.
I was not impressed, no. It may have been that one was old, but it did not have the texture or the substance to it that a meat product would have. It was close.
Yeah, I had it in 2019. I had one of them. Not at Burger King. This was slightly before, maybe around the same time it came out at Burger King. I don't generally go to fast food at all. So it was when Mark and I were in Vegas for the Freedom Fest. So we were actually at one of those hotel restaurants. So one of the ones that was in the casino. And they had the Impossible Burger on the menu. It costs like $2 extra. And of course, we're talking about a $26 burger, right? Because it's Vegas.
And that defeats the purpose automatically. It's $2 extra more than meat, and it's made of vegetables.
Right. Well, most of the time, these things do cost more than meat when it comes to going out to eat to get these things. Maybe eventually they'll become on par or whatever, but at least when...
But see, that's because they're doing it wrong. Like the old Burger King veggie burger, it didn't taste anything like an actual patty of meat. It tasted like a veggie burger. It was actually really, really good. It had its own unique, distinct flavor, and it was cheaper than your average, ordinary beef burger.
But they got rid of it?
Yeah. It wasn't supposed to be, hey, this is meat for people who don't want to actually eat meat. Like, no, this is a veggie burger. That's what it's for.
That's what my mom used to eat. The Boca burger is just a veggie burger. I just thought it was gross in general. Like, it was just, I can remember the smell and everything, but it wasn't pretending to be meat.
So I remember reading about this thing, and supposedly it's got like estrogen in it or something like that. I don't remember all the details.
There's probably a lot of soy.
That may very well be. I just remember it being fine. Like it had all the usual burger stuff on it. So I didn't taste like a patty next to another patty. Then you might have been able to really kind of tell the difference. But with all the other, tomato and lettuce and, all that stuff on, it seemed consistent enough to fit in or fill in.
That may be why Burger King's doesn't work as well, because a Whopper is going to taste the same no matter where in the United States you go to get it, right? It's not like Local Burger. If Local Burger had an Impossible Burger here in Keene, they could probably pull it off because there's so much uniqueness in each patty and each burger that they put together as it is. But with Burger King, every single product that they send through is supposed to taste like every single other product that they send through. A Whopper Jr. is always going to taste the same. But if you go to a local restaurant and pay $26 for a burger, you're going to get a tomato that tastes probably different than the tomato they sell at Burger King. The lettuce is going to taste different. It's all going to be fresher, so you're going to taste those things more
and
than
in
you would if you
season
got
or out of season.
You're going to taste all of those flavors instead of just the Burger King version where it's flame broiled whatever with some, mass-produced vegetables thrown on top of it with some with a dab of ketchup and mayo or whatever.
And MSG.
You think they add MSG at Burger King?
I think maybe all restaurants do. That's just what I assume.
I don't even know what MSG is.
It's
monosodium glutamate?
Yes, thank you. It's just
Sounds
like
delicious.
It's like a...
It is.
It's, accent?
No.
Oh, it's a seasoning people use a lot in the South that just put it on everything, and it's MSG.
Okay.
MSG is known for being what they call a flavor enhancer.
It's not like salt. It just gets your brain addicted to it. You actually, if you just taste it, it doesn't taste like salt. It's weird. I don't know. It doesn't really taste like anything, but it gets you literally addicted to it because it just, when you eat it, your brain just releases chemicals.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about how it works, but it's sort of noteworthy for being found in a lot of Chinese food, for instance. It's on almost every chip or whatever. Like if you've got Doritos or something like that, check the ingredients and you'll almost guaranteed find monosodium glutamate.
It's on everything at the Moose Mart.
Okay. That can't be true. It's not in candy.
No,
I
meant
chips
the
or
food they
whatever.
make.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They add MSG there?
Chris argues that it's anti-Chinese propaganda that MSG is bad for you, and I kind of am getting convinced that he's right, because apparently that it was something that came out of China. That's just what I'm trying to remember from what Chris told me, and people started saying, oh, MSG gives you cancer, and it was actually all fake science, and really MSG doesn't give you cancer. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of the negative claims towards MSG myself, although that said, I don't think anything in excess is probably good for you. So, don't dump MSG on all of your foods. But that said,
that ruins my evening dinner plans.
That said, if you do have a bottle of Accent around or a shaker of Accent, and you've got a particularly bland meal that you ended up with for whatever reason, you can sprinkle a little bit of Accent on there, and it might make it taste a little better.
Or just when you're cooking, when you throw some Accent on stuff, people are just going to think you're a better cook than you really are, and you can impress your friends. I'm serious.
Well, whatever it takes to impress people.
All right, the number here is
They would be more impressed to just see me cooking, I think, that even if it's not edible, they're like, yeah, but you cooked it.
We've had your spaghetti.
Yeah, I was going to say,
really
you made good spaghetti.
Oh, thank you.
And you made the meatballs.
603-283-6160. So she's got another suggestion here, and this one is... I'm going to take some issue with this one. She says, stay away from buying in bulk.
Oh, that's the one I thought was so weird. I've never heard anybody give that as a suggestion for saving money. It's the opposite.
Yeah. Now, there are some caveats here, and it's worth talking about this. So we'll get into it. You can share your thoughts. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. There's smarter ways to buy in bulk. And then there's not so smart ways to buy in bulk.
Yeah, you don't need to buy 30 hammocks from Walmart or whatever.
We'll talk about it. This is Free Talk Live. You can share your thoughts with us here. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open if you want to join the show here. 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Bonnie.
603-283-6160. What kind of suggestions do you have for lowering your cost of living as prices are going up everywhere? What do you do to cut back? These are some of the ideas we've been throwing around here tonight. Sparked off by an article that definitely has a statist tinge to it, coming from Bloomberg.com. And she gets into this one here. We'll give her credit here. Her name is Teresa Gilarducci. And this one is an interesting suggestion because I think it'll spark some good conversation, not because I agree with it. I only agree partially with this. She says, stay away from buying in bulk. And she goes on to say, you usually don't save any money by buying more. Well, that's obviously not true.
Yeah, that's just not true. Like, there's this soap I buy for the shower, and I use it so much, like I'm always going through it. So instead of buying one for $6 at CVS at a time, I buy a 3-pack on Amazon for like $18.
Right. No.
Wait, no,
That's
it's less than
not a
that.
saving.
It's less than that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Unless the argument is that, having an excess of these things causes a person to use more of it. Like having an entire room full of toilet paper causes a person to use up an extra roll each week because they're just more frivolously using it. I don't see what the argument here. Oh, or it's buying dumb things in bulk. Like I'm reminded of the episode of Futurama where Zoidberg finally became a, quote, crafty consumer. So he went out and he bought like 14 copies of a CD saying, I'm buying in bulk. I'm so smart now. But it's like, dude, you bought 14. And that's the joke, right? He bought 14 copies of a CD. It's not going to do him any good. It's not like buying 14 rolls of toilet paper or 14 packs of toilet paper or 14 cases of bottled water or anything like that.
I think yours are like $7 or $8 at the local store.
They're really expensive at CVS at least. I mean,
then
I could
you
go
get
to
them for
Walmart.
like 15 or something if you get the 3-pack or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
So going on, she says, sure, there may be great deals, but most consumers wind up falling for the tricks that entice them to spend more. Things like offering free samples, which often leads to impulse buying, or placing discounted big-ticket items near the entrance. If you absolutely must buy in bulk, try to do it with a friend so you can split some of the costs and ensure everything gets eaten or used. Most of that paragraph doesn't really have to do with buying in bulk. I've never seen free samples on bulk products. That's generally not something that happens very often.
I can't remember the last time I saw a free sample.
Yeah, I mean, well, that is also something that seems to have gone away in recent years as far as...
At least during COVID, if not just in general before then.
Yeah, I hope it'd be nice to see that come back, because it was always fun to, get free samples when you're at the grocery store. Or whatever,
but I'm thinking of something more like, okay, buy... an 8-pack roll of our toilet paper, and you get a roll of our paper towels to try out for free or something like that.
Almost never happens.
Where are these people buying their stuff from that has these free samples included in products?
It used to be like that at H-E-B, and it's just occurring to me that the coupons went away after COVID-19. I didn't think about this until just now. H-E-B is like the grocery store in Texas, and like I'd go there for groceries and then Walmart for anything else. Like I did not buy groceries at Walmart because H-E-B is just so much better. But I'm just realizing there used to be coupons like everywhere in the whole store, and they were yellow coupons. And sometimes you'd get one that said like if you buy a pack of Topo Chico, you can get something else for free. And that was only in like 2019, but now they're gone. So.
So then she points out about they put big ticket items, discounted big ticket items near the entrance. I think she must be referring to bulk buy stores like Costco or Sam's Club or whatever, but that doesn't...
Where they're like, buy a pallet of ibuprofen and save $1.
Yeah, no, that's obviously insane, right? So you do have to come into it with some level of intelligence. You cannot just presume. The mistake, I think one of the common mistakes in buying bulk is someone will presume they're getting a better deal. And that's not always necessarily true. You still need to look at the price. You still need to compare the price to what you would pay at another store or what you would pay for a smaller amount. As a general rule, when you buy a larger volume of product, you do get a cheaper per ounce price. That's generally a true rule, but you still need to pay attention.
I have taught one of my friends, and they were like, wow, I've never paid attention to that in my life. And I was just like, wow, well, it's a good thing I've had my dad to show me this. On at least in a lot of stores, on the price tag, there will be a little per ounce thing, and right there you can compare brands. Like this one is the same amount, but it's a different amount, so you can't compare without a calculator. So you just look at the per ounce part on the price tag. But I don't know if that's every store. Definitely like Walmart.
There are some stores that have that. However, you still have to be careful with that, because sometimes it's not consistent what they're comparing. So you have to look at what they're actually comparing. It's not always per ounce. Sometimes it might be one product might be per ounce, but another one might be per pound.
Okay, well, yeah, you got to pay attention.
So yeah, you always have to pay attention to what you're getting into. And the one good point she makes here is if you buy something in bulk that can go bad and you cannot finish the product before it goes bad,
you wasted money.
Then you've definitely wasted money.
Sure.
But that's true even if you buy something that's not in bulk, right? So we for instance, bought some meat, some lunch meat the other day at the grocery store, and
I just kind of forgot about it.
We didn't get through it in time. We didn't forget about it, just I didn't want to eat lunch meat every single day or whatever. I wanted something else, and so we didn't finish it all. We had to throw it away. And that's obviously going to be that's bad enough on a small purchase. It hurts when that happens, but if you bought 10 times the amount or two times the amount what you would normally buy, and then more than half of it goes bad, well, you've really thrown away quite a bit of money in that particular case.
And I don't want to state the obvious here, but as far as saving money on groceries and stuff like that, coupons cannot be beat. And you can just go online and search for coupons, and you can find them. And they will save you lots of money if you want to go through the trouble of...
If you spend the time on it, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to spend the time on it, you could save massive amounts of money using coupons.
I looked into just doing couponing and doing the thing where you save lots and lots of money each time, and you have to spend money to get into that. So you have to buy... you can't just get all of the coupons in a free magazine or something, like all the manufacturers' coupons. So some people sell packs where they've done all the work and put them all together. And yeah, you have to spend money to make money, but it seems to be a real, actually good thing. It seems like it works, but that was way before COVID-19, so I don't know if it's harder.
If that's still available.
Now. Yeah. During COVID-19, I had a manufacturer's coupon. It was just $2 on some shampoo or something, and I wanted to spend it at H-E-B. And it wasn't working on the self-checkout, so as I always did anytime I had a coupon, I had to just call someone, hey, can you make this go through? And she's like, sorry, due to the crisis, where the pandemic, we're not pushing through any coupons. I was like, it's a manufacturer's coupon, so you know that it is valid. And look, I have the right item and everything. She's like, we're not doing it as a policy due to COVID-19. I was like, really? Because H-E-B is making lots and lots of money off of this pandemic, and you're just not giving me $2. And I never wanted to go back, but of course I did. You just can't beat their price.
The number here is 603-283-6160. If you want to join the show, you can take control of the airwaves here. Again, if you want to give us some examples of ways that you have cut back, you're welcome to share your experience. 603-283-6160. And she's got a couple other tips coming up here that might not be so bad. We'll share that. And you can share your thoughts as well.
They're about to be better than eating bugs.
Oh, well, thankfully she hasn't actually suggested that. There's more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A humanitarian resolution on Ukraine drafted by Russia has failed to pass the UN Security Council. China was the only other country to back the draft. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
13 members of the Security Council's 15-seat panel abstained from voting on Moscow's resolution. The draft called for safe humanitarian access to Ukraine and the protection of civilians, but it faced overwhelming opposition because it didn't recognise Russia's role in the conflict. The US described the resolution as farcical. China was the only country, alongside Russia, to vote in favour, saying it did so to encourage the international community to focus solely on the humanitarian response in Ukraine and to scale up its response. Meanwhile, the General Assembly is set to continue an emergency special session for a second day on Thursday before it considers two other competing humanitarian resolutions also addressing the situation in Ukraine.
U.S. President Joe Biden has arrived in Europe for meetings in Brussels and Poland with European and NATO leaders. The visit comes amid intense fighting, such as in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol, as well as worsening civilian casualties. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84. She'd been battling cancer. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Madeleine Albright arrived in the United States at the age of 11 after her family fled first the Nazis in Czechoslovakia, then the Communists. When President Clinton picked her to be America's ambassador to the UN, she would later recall it wasn't easy.
There are 15 members of the Security Council, so 14 men sat there staring at me, and I thought, well, if I don't speak today, then the voice of the United States will not be heard.
Success there saw her promoted to the State Department, where she backed NATO's expansion and pushed the White House to respond more intensely to the crisis in Bosnia. Her death at the very moment war has returned to Europe is a sad coda to a life devoted to democracy and human rights.
Wall Street struggled to gain ground in Wednesday's trading as oil prices rose 5%. The backdrop of the conflict in Ukraine continued to worry investors who are still trying to navigate volatile trading sessions. FSN's Nick Harper reports.
US markets have been seesawing this week, down on Monday, up Tuesday and down again on Wednesday. The uneven ground and volatility created by the conflict in Ukraine has made it difficult for investors to find a firm footing this week. Wednesday's session was further hampered by oil prices rising once again, US crude increasing around 5% to almost $115 a barrel. At the close, the Dow was down 1.3%, the S&P had fallen 1.2%, while the Nasdaq finished 1.3% lower.
From Bureaus Worldwide.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live will be broadcasting from the Porcupine Freedom Festival and Fork Fest. Fork Fest comes up the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival. This year, Fork Fest is June 27th through July 3rd, and it is the 6th annual Fork Fest. Same place as before, Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. All you have to do to attend Fork Fest is just simply reserve your camping site, your RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. That's all you got to do. There's no ticket to Fork Fest.
July 3rd, so it won't be for the fireworks?
The fireworks happen on that Saturday. So actually the fireworks will be on the 2nd of July at the campground. So they decide when to do it, and they always have it on the Saturday just because the 4th obviously isn't always on a weekend. And it's probably going to be a few years before it is again. But you can enjoy those fireworks, hopefully, because they've been doing them for 40-something years there at the campground, and they're amazing. So definitely worth staying around for that. June 27th through July 3rd. It's a great excuse to just hang out in the woods with, well, it's not really real camping. It's camping with amenities. Let's say it's easy access to anything that you need in town. It's not very far away, and hopefully there'll be people cooking there. Because how was that last year, Aria? Were there some people cooking at Fork Fest?
There were, but there weren't as many as there were the year before.
Okay, so there may be an opportunity.
There is definitely an opportunity, but people like Mikey, who goes every year, Matt, who is on the show with us on Thursday nights, they didn't cook last year.
Oh, yeah, big loss then.
So, there were some new people.
Okay.
Mikey told me he's going to be making pancakes this year.
Sweet. All right, so check it out. And a good way to figure out kind of what's going on is to connect with the community, and you can do that over at forkfest.party. There's some chat rooms that you can link up to. There's a forum, and it's a good way to kind of find out what other people might be planning on doing. Because, again, it's decentralized. There's no central command and control. There's no bureaucracy that runs the thing. There's nobody who's in charge. So you got to kind of bring to the table what you want to see happen. Check it out at forkfest.party and mark your calendar. Get your campsite over at Rogers Campground, June 27th through July 3rd. So a few more suggestions here from the story about how to handle the inflation, how to handle the constantly going, the rising prices that we're seeing in society. So she says, be considerate of buying in bulk. Ultimately, you do need to pay attention to what you're going to buy and make sure you're actually getting a better deal, and make sure that it's not going to go bad before you finish it. She says, aside from being more thoughtful about purchases, it's also prudent to think about unnecessary charges. So review your credit card to make sure there aren't any unwanted recurring ones. This is a good suggestion, and one that people should do on a regular basis, at least once a year.
There's an app that will do this for you, in fact.
I was going to look into it. I can't remember what it's called.
I don't remember what it's called, but I need to look back into it because I remembered the other day that I've been subscribed to Netflix for like the last 6 months.
But you haven't used it?
And I haven't opened Netflix. And the last thing I watched on Netflix was the second season of Tiger King. And I watched like the first 10 minutes of that. And that was back in October of last year, maybe?
Wasn't good?
No, it didn't hold my interest.
There's 3 here that I see. Hiatus, Truebill, and Harvest.
These are the companies that will help you figure out what's on your bill. What makes them useful? Is it that they can identify the obscure things by their phone number or something like that?
I don't know, never having used one of these, but in theory, you would give them access to your account. Like you would give them your Netflix login credentials, and they would just keep an eye on your history. And if you're not using your Netflix or your Spotify or whatever, they'd send you a notification. Hey, you haven't used Netflix in 3 weeks, but you're going to be charged for it.
Wait. You give them access to Netflix? This doesn't analyze your credit card
bill? It
bill?
might be their email, because I used to have this thing called Paribus that would watch your emails, and then if anything you ordered online didn't arrive in time, they would contact them themselves on your behalf and then get them to give you either a refund or money, and it worked for me. It's just that now I realize, that's a huge privacy issue, and I wouldn't want to do that anymore.
Were they getting paid by getting a cut of the refund?
You don't pay them. They get paid some other way.
Huh. I guess I'm just curious.
The ones I'm thinking about are strictly for subscription services.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I've never used one of those.
So you're not talking about something that actually looks at your credit card bill and figures out what's on there.
No, those things exist as well. There's like the Clio app and the Dave app and stuff like that. Those things certainly exist. I never found much use for them, but they do exist, and they do monitor your stuff, and they are neat. But I didn't find them to be valuable to my life.
Okay. I mean, normally I would just look at my credit card bill and say, okay, I know what that is. I know what that is. What's this thing?
Every time I see that commercial, I just think this must be for people who have a lot of stuff coming out of different credit cards. Because I have like one bank account that I use, and it's just, I would notice.
You would know.
And there is one thing that is recurring that I need to get rid of, but it's just not going to work with that app because it's a freaking insurance thing. And every time I've called them, it's so complicated. It takes so long, and they're always...
See, for me, it's all still only like two different cards, and they're from the same bank, so it's super easy to monitor. It's all within the same app, but they come out at such random times. Like, here's GoDaddy hitting you with a DNS charge once a year or whatever, and here's your web hosting that for whatever reason I still have set up for every month or whatever, and here's your email service from GoDaddy, and here's Spotify, here's HBO Max, here's Netflix, here's Hulu, here's all of these others. Here's Amazon Prime. Here's a random $35 Amazon Prime purchase. I don't know what that's for. I assume it's something I bought at some point.
That you have recurring?
No, it just popped up a few days ago. Like, I knew for a fact that I hadn't ordered Amazon on that particular day, but suddenly there's this $35 Amazon charge. I assume it's something I ordered at some point that was on back order, and suddenly they haven't. They're like, hey, we're going to ship this to you now.
Well, you should be able to pull up your order list on Amazon and review it and see what's there. Yes, but there's
also Amazon subscriptions. I have several of those. I mean, once you start subscribing to stuff regularly using your credit card or your debit card or stuff, it becomes almost immediately overwhelming because it's so convenient to just have the stuff that you're going to use, like laundry detergent or paper towels or, toiletries delivered to your house.
But then if Amazon adds something in there, you wouldn't know, right? Like if they shipped you an extra thing or whatever.
You know when you received it.
Well, I would know that I got an extra thing. I'm like, I didn't.
But did they charge you more or whatever? Yeah, you could get a little lost in that. But the point here is to be aware of your purchases, right? To pay attention to them. Some people will just put things on their card and they'll just never even look at the bill, right? They just pay it, whatever it costs, you got to pay it. Well, look at the bill and see what's on there. Maybe there's something there you forgot about, or there's a recurring charge that you signed up for years ago, and just like you said, you haven't used the Netflix account in 6 months, and you just realized it recently. So
I have a Microsoft Office one too, and I don't even use that. I use Libra on my.
That's another one. I don't have a Microsoft Office account, but I do have a Microsoft Xbox account. Why? I don't even have an Xbox.
So take the time to cancel those accounts and
maybe
save yourself
get one of those apps and let us know if it works.
I did cancel the Xbox one.
All right, good deal.
So I got charged for it. I was like, what the hell did I sign up for Xbox?
This one's going to be a shocker, I think, for the both of you. And I think a lot of people are going to be shocked by this one. If you're one of the many Americans who became a new pet owner during the pandemic, you might want to rethink those costly pet medical needs. It may sound harsh, but researchers actually don't recommend pet chemotherapy, which can cost up to $10,000 for ethical reasons. Now, indeed, there are some really questionable techniques for allegedly helping pets. A lot of it's just as much bunk as what they try to sell humans as far as human medical treatments.
I think about that stuff all the time. Like, I'm not vaccinated against anything since the day I was born. My mom got me vaccinated at the hospital, and then she got scared and stopped vaccinating all of us. So I always think about, why do I get my dog vaccinated? It's just because it's the thing they tell me to do. So it's really scary. Like, that's another reason I don't want to have kids. I mean, they would just be like, you got to do this. And I'd be like, I don't know. They told me to do it.
Yeah, but the Bill Gates of the world, that was me trying to speak. It wasn't me coughing. The Bill Gates of the world, though, they have better things to do than figure out how to, brainwash my dog with a vaccine, right?
Hopefully.
So I figure any vaccine is probably safe, right? They want to brainwash me, not the dog.
Yeah, but what if it's just health? Like, what if he could live 16 years, but instead he lives 15 years? I would hate if I could know that.
The number, if you want to join the show here, it's 603-283-6160. We're going to find out what a Perma Crisis is coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on an airplane. The flight attendant announced, "If you paid more than $75 for your round-trip ticket, you overpaid." This is brilliant because everybody on the flight paid more, and I was struck by how all the road warriors stopped typing and reading and working and looked up. The announcement invited us to apply for the airline's credit card, and the sign-up bonus, enough frequent flyer miles for a free round trip. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. With some banks offering free credit cards, $75 is an outrage for an annual fee, but a bargain for airline tickets. For more tips on communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
Having spent 8 years, 6 months, and 21 days of my life in the Florida State prison system, I'm going to say that the incidences of rape are much, much exaggerated in the media. I'm sure it happened.
It makes for interesting television shows.
Yeah. I mean, all the things that I've seen on Oz, I saw in prison, but I was there for 9 years. So, if I saw one incidence of violence where somebody got their ear bit off, okay, it didn't happen every episode.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it is a public perception, though, and people, it's almost a joke, or it's like a wink and a nod.
Yeah, sure.
Bubba's going to get you when you go to prison.
That's exactly the idea. As though sodomy somehow fixes people's broken minds. Right. That's not where they're putting that thing. So, I mean, it's not gonna jostle anything around and fix it.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Moments remain here. If you want to join us, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and Bonnie.
And you can join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. Don't forget to follow us on our Odyssey channel, which you can do over at video.freetalklive.com. It's a great website that is killing YouTube as far as content is concerned. You can actually find things that you want to watch on Odyssey. They are not banning people for their opinions, thankfully.
Or nationality, like Russians.
Indeed. So check out Odyssey. It's a great platform. It's based on Library, which is actually a protocol that allows you to store media online with no censorship whatsoever. So you really ought to check out Library if you're really interested in freedom of speech, lbry.com. Odyssey is a platform built on top of that. There's a little bit more to Odyssey than that is concerned, so check them out. They do live streaming too. That's where we stream video every single night over at video.freetalklive.com. Please give us a follow there, and then you'll probably, if you look around, you'll find some of your favorite YouTube channels, especially the ones that have been kicked off of YouTube. Almost all of them have made the flip.
Well, it's just a few clicks to migrate your entire YouTube channel over to Library. So I can't imagine why any YouTube creator, even if they're just making gaming videos or something just completely non-controversial, why wouldn't you
want to do it?
Go ahead and do it.
And you can make library coins off of it.
Yep, that's true. And they're
just don't tell the SEC because they're not happy about that part.
No, the SEC's going after Library, which is one of the reasons why we're big supporters of Library, because they're doing great work for the world of freedom and the freedom to watch and spread media. It's not just videos; you can also upload MP3s and things like that there. So check it out, lbry.com, and follow our channel at video.freetalklive.com. Aria, you had a story that has introduced a new term, and they're not doing this. They're not explaining this term, Perma Crisis, in a way that is being critical of that, right? Like they're embracing this term.
Yeah.
Where's it coming from?
It is coming from The Guardian, of course, hard left. When John Adams and his two daughters settled down to watch a family film, he wasn't expecting questions about bombing raids. What the hell family film were they watching,
Maybe
of all?
2012. I don't know. I always thought that movie was way too scary.
Sound of Music?
Maybe it could be that one.
Yeah.
Bombing raids are in The Sound of Music?
I don't know if a bombing raid per se, but it does take place in like Nazi times.
But as they discussed what to watch, he spotted 12-year-old Helen scrolling through YouTube looking for clips of air raid sirens. She wanted to know what it would sound like if worst came to worst. The question this morning at breakfast was, what are we meant to do if there's a nuclear attack, says Adam, a stay-at-home dad from Caterham in Surrey. That one just took me right back to my childhood when these were real practical questions. It was never a practical question, and there was never a practical answer.
Yeah, I was going to say, the answers weren't practical at all. I mean, the question isn't unbelievable, but...
you die. That's what you do.
That's like Chris Wade. He just bought a nuclear radiation detector, and he was saying... you don't really have to worry about it unless it goes over 52. And I was like, then you won't have to worry about it either. You'll just say 52 and there'll be a white flash and it'll be over.
Fun fact, the reason that the Fallout guy from the video games is doing this is because that's the general rule. If you hold your thumb up, if it covers up the mushroom cloud, then you're a relatively safe distance from it. And if it doesn't, then you're going to die probably sooner rather than later. But that's why he's giving a thumbs up.
I had not heard that. Yeah. That's interesting.
So a thumbs up is a bit more practical than a, radiation detector. Yeah. So this guy still remembers deciding that in the event of war, he would climb some high ground near his house to watch for incoming missiles. Now,
what good is that going to do?
Right, but this is a guy who was traumatized by years of propaganda and Cold War fear-mongering.
Yeah.
And I was just showing propaganda, fear-mongering to his kid for entertainment.
Yes, he's paying that forward, but it's not for entertainment. He wants his kids to be as terrified as he was when he was a kid. Now he's the one digging out maps to show 9-year-old Izzy, his 9-year-old kid, where Ukraine is. The family has distant relatives in the country who have now escaped to Hungary, which he thinks has made the war that bit more real for them. Over tea or on the school run in those rare raw moments just before lights out when children disclose what's actually troubling them, many parents now face questions they're struggling to answer. A primary school teacher friend spent last week soothing pupils who were panicking that a bomb was about to drop on them.
Wow.
Where is this? Where was that?
It doesn't say.
UK,
but it's presumably
Surrey.
the UK.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't say. The father was from Surrey. It doesn't say where the author themselves is from.
The Guardian is based in the UK, but they do a lot of international reporting, so hard to say. But it doesn't sound like somebody who's near the action, because they said their family lives in Hungary, which is some ways away.
Well, British children's anxieties pale in comparison with what the Ukrainian peers are suffering under bombardment from Russian rockets. A pandemic that led to rising mental health problems among young people. Well, it was your fear-mongering that caused a lot of those health problems. Has left many parents wondering about the impact of living through seemingly apocalyptic times. Books on helping children manage their emotions. How about just don't expose your kids to constant fear?
Yeah.
From the TV presenter at Middleton's Mission Total Resilience to Tom and Joe Brassington's picture book Bottled are shooting up on Amazon rankings. On Mumsnet, which apparently is some sort of forum, a mother questioning whether her daughter's year 3 teachers should have talked to the class about Ukrainians having to leave the country with their pets for fear of being shot by Russians. The consensus was that this was already the talk of the playground, so why shouldn't the teacher bring it up?
I don't see why she shouldn't.
Well, I don't know what year 3 is. What is that, a third grader, presumably? Yeah. I don't think it's really a third grade teacher's job to explain to your kids that, children in Ukraine are leaving with their pets for fear of being shot by Russians.
Maybe if they asked about it.
It seems like it's propaganda, though. I mean, we don't know how much. There doesn't seem to be a lot of truth in that.
No, there's definitely a lot of Western propaganda that is very anti-Russian and is not fair at all. For all the talk about how bad Russia is, I remember somebody was telling me they saw a video of a Russian tank squad or whatever that was trying to move down whatever street, and some Ukrainian person was standing in front of the tank. And you know what? They tried to go around him.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right?
Well,
so, if they're trying to go around the guy, instead of crushing him and shooting him or whatever, you're not in a war, full-on, kill 'em all war situation, right? You're in a situation where, at the very least, you could say, this invading force knows there are people with video cameras around and doesn't want to look like as monstrous of a group as, say, the Red Chinese did back in the day.
Well, that's one video, but I follow this Telegram group called Intel Slava. You can find it at t.me/Intel Slava. And they're a Russian news aggregator who covers conflicts, geopolitics, and urgent news from around the world. And I've seen plenty of videos of, actual ruined cities and stuff in Ukraine.
Yeah, but are they real?
I don't doubt it, but prior to when COVID-19 first started, I followed this guy on Telegram called Dr. Harry Chen, who was a former Chinese national who was sharing videos of people just dropping dead in the streets as they were walking.
Yep.
Beijing was on fire, and people were just, standing there at tables, and suddenly they would just fall face first dead. It turns out none of that was actually going on. But he had me believe that, oh man, this is the real thing. And when
he
it
was
comes
probably
to the
working
US,
for the Chinese government, and they made those fake videos to scare people. Is likely what happened.
I don't know what benefit they would have from that. I'm just saying
fear-mongering.
I can't believe any of them.
Shut the world down and the country down.
A population that is living in fear is easily controlled.
Speaking of, Julia, a mother of 3 teenagers aged 19, 17, and 14, regrets reassuring them when the virus first emerged in China that it was nothing to worry about. Within weeks, the boys were in lockdown and their grandmother had died in a nursing home. I learned then never to reassure when I couldn't be sure.
Well, no kid's grandma has ever died in a nursing home.
Right.
Liz is a different person. She believes that her children, aged 12, 14, and 16, should have been lied to. And she says that. I'm a firm believer in lying to the children.
14.
But get this. We told them we'd 16. All be fine and not to worry during COVID, which we all were. So you didn't lie to them, did you?
Right.
So you're a firm believer in telling your kids the truth that other people don't want you to tell them?
Your kids are going to really grow up to hate you if you're lying to them at 16 years old. They're going to find out within a day that you're lying to them because there's the internet and they're not children at that point. And then they're going to grow up yeah, my mom always lied to me.
And others suggest, a psychiatrist suggests sticking to general statements. Countries are working together to figure out what to do.
The government's on it.
Interesting story. I think we should post this over on the Free Talk Live social. So if you don't have access, send it over and I'll make sure it gets posted. I wish we had more time to talk about how living in fear is so dangerous, especially for kids, but for anybody. And staying optimistic is always worth doing. We'll see you tomorrow night. freetalklive.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A humanitarian resolution on Ukraine drafted by Russia has failed to pass the UN Security Council. China was the only other country to back the draft. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
13 members of the Security Council's 15-seat panel abstained from voting on Moscow's resolution. The draft called for safe humanitarian access to Ukraine and the protection of civilians, but it faced overwhelming opposition because it didn't recognise Russia's role in the conflict. The US described the resolution as farcical. China was the only country, alongside Russia, to vote in favour, saying it did so to encourage the international community to focus solely on the humanitarian response in Ukraine and to scale up its response. Meanwhile, the General Assembly is set to continue an emergency special session for a second day on Thursday before it considers two other competing humanitarian resolutions also addressing the situation in Ukraine.
U.S. President Joe Biden has arrived in Europe for meetings in Brussels and Poland with European and NATO leaders. The visit comes amid intense fighting, such as in the Ukrainian port city of Mariupol, as well as worsening civilian casualties. Madeleine Albright, America's first female Secretary of State, has died at the age of 84. She'd been battling cancer. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
Madeleine Albright arrived in the United States at the age of 11 after her family fled first the Nazis in Czechoslovakia, then the Communists. When President Clinton picked her to be America's ambassador to the UN, she would later recall it wasn't easy.
There are 15 members of the Security Council, so 14 men sat there staring at me, and I thought, well, if I don't speak today, then the voice of the United States will not be heard.
Success there saw her promoted to the State Department, where she backed NATO's expansion and pushed the White House to respond more intensely to the crisis in Bosnia. Her death at the very moment war has returned to Europe is a sad coda to a life devoted to democracy and human rights.
Wall Street struggled to gain ground in Wednesday's trading as oil prices rose 5%. The backdrop of the conflict in Ukraine continued to worry investors who are still trying to navigate volatile trading sessions. FSN's Nick Harper reports.
US markets have been seesawing this week, down on Monday, up Tuesday and down again on Wednesday. The uneven ground and volatility created by the conflict in Ukraine has made it difficult for investors to find a firm footing this week. Wednesday's session was further hampered by oil prices rising once again, US crude increasing around 5% to almost $115 a barrel. At the close, the Dow was down 1.3%, the S&P had fallen 1.2%, while the Nasdaq finished 1.3% lower.